Okay. It looks like I have fixed my audio delay issues. If you're hanging out in chat and you can give me a little bit of feedback, I've been messing around with it for the last 30 minutes and I think I figured out what the issue was. I'm hoping I did. Cool. Yeah, I'm so normally when I do the podcast, I do the podcast just on my game PC and stream directly from there. I don't use the my laptop stream PC. Um, but I've been trying to track down my audio delay issue. Um, and so I've been messing with that, and I was like, okay, well, I'll do the podcast with the stream PC as well as the game PC tonight to see if I can mess around with it. Awesome. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. Yeah, it looks when I'm looking over here at the stream PC, it looks like, the audio bar is matching up with the video. And so what I found is when I mess with I use a digital mixer. I use Wavelink because I have Elgato everything. And so when I would mess with that while OBS was running, it would introduce like a big old long delay. I have no idea why. So I can't if I mess with the filter. So I have a an audio filter to help cut out the background noise. And so what I would mess with that, if I would change anything with it, it would introduce a big old long delay. And I'm hoping that now that I have it set, that it'll just leave it alone. But I haven't tried messing with anything else in Wavelink. Like I can adjust all the audio levels with my Stream Deck and stuff from the different sources. But right now it's just my voice. So hopefully it stays sunk up. So we'll see. Uh, yeah. So welcome to episode 97. We're almost to 100 of the Pathfinders podcast. I'm Tree0311 or Tree0311 for all you infantry types. And I am your host for the Pathfinders podcast, where we are charting the way through all the nebulous information surrounding Star Citizen, Squadron 42, and their development. And it's been a few weeks since I did an episode. I was hoping to do some more streaming this last week, but the kids have just been the only way we can be sure is if you sing and dance the Taylor Swift song. There's no way I know any Taylor Swift songs. I am so wildly out of touch when it comes to popular music. Oh man, I don't listen to any music at all anymore. It's just strictly audiobooks and podcasts. Um, Shake it off, shake it off. Okay, yeah, I do know that song, but that's all I know from it. And if you had said that and not in the context of Taylor Swift, I wouldn't have known that it was Taylor Swift. Yeah, I said nebulous. I said the secret password. But yeah, I wanted to do an episode because we got a pretty big roadmap roundup on Wednesday. And then when 4.7 launched on it was Wednesday, right? When launched on Wednesday, they did the com link that they always post. The patch goes live with the contents of the patch. But then they also did a detailed crafting guide, which is solid. It's some really good information. A few things are written in there. I'm like, I'm not quite sure what that means. So I wanted to go over it with you guys and hear your thoughts. Um, but yeah, so I wanted to just look at the com link for 4.7, hear what you guys have been experiencing. Um, I have not gotten to play since it went live. I did a fair bit of testing in PTU. And so I'm hoping that I can stream again tomorrow night and start doing some grinding for some blueprints. And there's some great resources, pardon me, in terms of missions and what blueprints get rewarded for them and how to find them and all that. So I was going to go over one of those after we go over the crafting guide as well. But hopefully tomorrow night I can get on and stream. And if anyone else wants to hop on with me and um, oh yeah, there's gonna be some wipes. There's gonna be some wipes for sure. Um, I would not be surprised at all to see things get lost. Um, yeah. Uh, but it's something fun to do. It's something different to do. You know, it drives you to other content that you might not otherwise play. So if you want to grind for a particular set of blueprints, hit me up in my Discord. I don't care what blueprints I get, as long as I get to test out some missions, get some blueprints, and then grind some mining later in the week to make some stuff. I just want to test out the feature more than I got to do in PTU. Um, I did um, I did all my testing when it went to Wave One. I haven't done a Vaughn mission. What blueprints come with the Vaughn missions? I'll have to look. But the majority of my testing when I was in PTU was when it went. I did wave one, and then I also had a couple sessions when it went all waves, kill shot and pulverizer. Nice. Um, but when I was trying to test the crafting machine, I kept on breaking them. They kept on getting borked by me dismantling things, and so I was like, okay, well, I'll stop doing that. And I never got a chance to test it anymore before it went live. But that's like one of the main things I'm excited about the I keep saying crafting machine, but the fabricator is being able to dismantle stuff, you know, and dismantle things because there's a lot of things that don't you can't earn in missions, but there are things apparently that have blueprints that you can dismantle and get materials from, even though you can't earn that blueprint via mission. At least that's what I'm seeing so far. So, um, let's go ahead and switch screens and we'll get into the podcast. And we will all cross our fingers this week that the kids are a little bit easier on me because that's why I haven't gotten to play it all the last several days is because I've just been so dang tired because I'm full-time dadding it right now. You know, I'm not working because of my shoulder. And so I'm just home with the kids full time, which, yeah, I've been enjoying my time with them. We've gotten to do some fun stuff. But at the same time, you know, you get them off to bed between 7 and 8 o'clock, and like, okay, I'm gonna play some Star Citizen, then, or I could just go lie down because you know, like, I've been falling asleep at like you know between 9 and 10 o'clock. I just haven't had the energy to go play because the kids are wearing me out. So hopefully I can have some energy to tomorrow and get in and play because I really want to play some more. Um, I want to grind for some blueprints. Um, I've heard there's mixed results with Vandal tech smugglers in terms of the elevators working. I was told that they were fixed in PTU, and then now I'm hearing that they're broken again in live, which is super frustrating. That got yes, jaded cynic, exactly. That's what is. I'm just gonna sit here for a few minutes, finish my cocktail, and then I'll go boot up the computer and I'll hop on and play for a couple hours. And then I sit on the couch, and the dog hops on the couch and puts his head on my lap. It's warm. I'm like, oh, nope, I'm not gonna play tonight. I'm just gonna doom scroll on my phone for a little bit, and then I'll crawl off to bed. Yeah. So let's go ahead and switch screens. I just want to briefly go through the 4.7 comlink. Welcome to the Rock. Um, before we move on to the Roadmap Roundup. That way, if you haven't played it, hadn't had a chance to test out the patch, you know, you can see what's in it, and then we'll look at what released with it in the Roadmap Roundup, and look at what's coming in 4.8 because we just got the first additions to it, and so there will be more. There's more that we know is coming, at least per Jared. And it's shaping up to be juicy. And there's a lot of people that are really sleeping on what they've added in and what it means. So let's go ahead and switch screens. variation on the thing about 11 p.m. is if you're not careful, you blink and it becomes 2 a.m. Yeah, North End Trooper and I learned that the hard way because we got started doing uh, Rockbreaker, right? Or what do they call what's the official name now? It's not Rock Cracker anymore. Is it Rockbreaker or Breaker Station? Or I keep forgetting. Um, but we finally, yeah, we finally got the exclusive mission, the two of us for 800K or whatever it is, starting at like 10 o'clock, and we didn't finish until like after 1. It was coming up on 2 a.m. Just because we made a few mistakes and we learned some things and stuff, so it took us a lot longer than it should have. Plus, there's only two of us, and we didn't even mine the rock. We just broke it just to, okay, we did it. We accomplished the thing. Um, and then we're like, oh my God, we both have to be up in like 5 hours. Oh, yeah. So found this.
Welcome to the Rock.
Iconic Sean Connery. Yeah, it's a long mission for two guys. If you've got a fire team of 4, it can go a lot faster. And now that like I've played through it, I know how to do the things. I know how to find the things. Um, I was also looting a lot because I'm a compulsive looter and I can't help myself. And it's fun to explore the environments. And so I was opening every door I could find, doing every puzzle I could find, because I wanted to experience the whole thing. And I really enjoyed it. The level design folks have come a long way. And I'm already looking forward to seeing what they come up with next. Onyx was really great, and this is even a step up from Onyx. You know, it's I'm enthused by it all. Utini, yeah. I need to add that soundbite to my stream. Uh, that's the reason I wear heavy armor, the biggest backpacks. A group can do the 3 parts at once. Yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, yeah. If you've got a decent sized group, you can divide and conquer. Um, or if you just have like 4 people, you can burn through each section, really quickly. You can definitely shave that time down a lot, especially if it's not your first run through, which is good. You know, you get some practice with it, and you get a good core group of people, and you can get through it really quick. Maybe even make a couple of runs in a 2 to 3 hour session. You can get a lot done, get a lot of good minerals out of it, a lot of good loot. So yeah, just hope nobody presses the laser button. Yeah, wrong lever. All right, so let's take a look at 4.7. I love this shot, and that's the other thing is not just the interior of Rockcracker or Breaker Station, um, but the exterior is really cool looking. The way it's built into this bigger asteroid behind it, and then there's all these other asteroids and the gas cloud around it. It's super atmospheric. The dang tram things that go around the ring are just cool. It's just when those transitions happen, it's a really neat function. Hats off to the devs that built that. That was really cool to hear them talk about it and everything. Obviously a whole lot of gaming influence in it, and just really cool to see it all come together. I like how there's multiple entrances, the EVA entrances with the pads on the side, on the sides of the rock. Elevator one shots Polaris easy. Yeah. And God, that laser, that's just cool. So explore and restore. Delve into the abandoned chasms of the QV breaker stations with open eyes and a loaded sidearm to procure as much loot as you can haul. Nestled in the Keeger Belt, these stations are rife with rare and remarkable resources for the taking, if you can revive the immense rock cracking power lying dormant within. Acquire shared or exclusive rights from Shubin to secure access to the derelict repositories. Gather your most industrious team and make way to Nyx. I enjoy that they add a lot of puzzle things in there. I wish the only thing is I was talking about this because so North End Trooper, we both live in Boise together. We're practically neighbors. Um, and Captain, who's also in my Discord, he joins us a lot when we're playing. Um, and we were talking about this because we had a Bar Citizen event yesterday afternoon, evening here in Boise. A lot of fun. There's about 10, 11, 12 of us all total. And about half of the people, or a handful of them, drove up from Salt Lake City to join us. They're from they run the Salt Lake City Bar Citizen group, so it was great to see them. It was fun to hang out and have a beer, have a burger, talk about SC. Yeah, absolute madmen coming up here for that. That was a lot of fun, and I got a sticker from them, the Utah Star Citizens, and they even have, hold on, I gotta pull it out of the thing case. They have coins. So let's try to get a good shot of that. Sorry, it's kind of dark. And then the other side. Pretty neat. Pretty neat. The beehive thing is a Utah thing, but it's a really cool design. Sorry, I wish I could. The lighting was better so you could see it better, but you got the mountains and the lake and the beehive, and there's um I'm not sure which station that's meant to be up in space. Super cool looking. Hey, Great Bears, good to see you. Thanks for coming and hanging out. Hope you're doing well. Um, so yeah, that was a lot of fun chatting with everybody about SC, and we always talk about other games and stuff. Like we were talking about some Lord of the Rings stuff and Star Wars. We were talking Zero Company. IGN just did a big review for Star Wars Zero Company, so that was another topic of conversation. But like when Northern and Trooper and I were doing Breaker Station, my only issue was, and part of this is like we're missing a lot of the things that we need for opening doors that are locked. We don't have cutting tools that work on the doors. We don't have the breaching charges. We can't hack them. And so it's just like insert fuse thingy, but the place you insert it is right on the door. And yeah, we can't hack the fucking doors. When can I hack the damn doors? When can I force the doors open with the breaching tool thing? That's what I want, is to, okay, well, we used our breaching tool on the last one, or maybe they're reusable. I don't know, but like, okay, well, let's hack this one. I want to do things differently. Or there was like I forget what it was, a coolant pipe or some sort of pipe that was on there, and they're always like right there on the door, instead of somewhere else in the room or the hallway that the door is in. You know, okay, give people a hint of what it is, on the door, what's the fault, and then make people explore the environment around them to find it, not just, oh, it's right there. I just need to put the thing right in there because I can see that it's missing and it's sparking. It was a little bit, could just jump it with a screwdriver if you can with a fuse. Yeah. Hey, just got to make sure you let go. It's non-conductive. Don't hold on to it. That was like my really only gripe, is that the getting the doors open to progress the next part was just, it was too easy. But I liked having to explore around to find they're not batteries, but whatever was in those walker things, and those were really cool. The mining laser walker things, those are really neat to see. I'd love to see those actually like functioning and animated, and see them walking around, in an environment someday in the future. And you can, there's the hidden openings where you have to mine the rock things with the mining attachment on a multi-tool. So many different things like that were just really, really great. Environmental storytelling and puzzling, and there's a little bit of platforming built in, which always makes me nervous, because I I'm terrible at platforming, timing your jumps and stuff. And that'll get better with, better mantling and everything. But it's definitely coming along. It was a really great environment. Um, Derelict discoveries. Survey the area. Deserted stations can prove tricky to access. So scope out your surroundings to find your way in. Keep a sharp eye as you comb the sprawling caverns and abandon equipment for loot and other items of interest. There's a lot of hand minables, which was really great. Um, yeah, there's good loot. I did, in PTU, the NPCs were not as responsive as in a lot of areas. I feel like their detection wasn't working in certain areas, like something was obstructing their detection, whereas other areas they'd respond appropriately. And then in some areas you walk a corner and you're like looking right at them and it's like, okay, fine, bang. Was a Leatherman called a lifer tool in O3s? You know what? I don't recall ever having. Maybe it was, and I just don't remember. Beer pong that monkey wrench. Yeah. Um, but it's really cool. And the other thing that makes me really excited about this is, it's a really great interior environment, but because it's a deserted station, it makes me excited for more deserted, more station and asteroid facility interiors, because this is all built inside a rock. And oh, hi, buddy.
Chopper sounds cool.
Yeah, Chopper's hanging out with me, and I'm doing my show on the internet.
Hey,
I'm hanging out with my friends. Why is his arms out?
Why does he have another arm?
Yeah, that's the pose I set him up in.
Why?
Yeah. We got Chopper.
You about Chopper? Wait.
Stop it.
Why did?
Wah, wah.
Why do you say that?
Yeah, that's one of the things he says. Wait. Hold on. Here. All right, bud, let's do our thing. High fives. Knuckles. Close. Hug. Kiss. And
Live long and prosper.
live long and prosper. All right. I love you. Sweet dreams. I'll see you tomorrow. All right. Quiet, Chopper. Go to sleep. There we go. Yeah, a random turret gunner walks on camera. Yeah, the twins already off to bed. It's crazy to me. Like, I can do live long and prosper with this hand pretty well. This one, I struggle with it. But Boone, his little hands, like he can separate these fingers. Like, it's like a almost 35-degree angle or something. It's like, how do you have that much dexterity in your chubby little hands? But yeah, I taught him when I got the Enterprise D behind me. And yes, I know the Brassards are backwards. I wasn't paying attention when I put them back on because I had to do a bunch of troubleshooting with this light kit to get it all working. And even with all my troubleshooting, one of the light strips on the other Brassard over there is broken. Oh man, I wonder if the batteries are already running low. It seems like the lights are kind of dim. Or is that just my stream lights? Maybe. I don't know. I gotta mess with it because I can actually plug it into a USB. So I gotta run a USB cord there so I won't have to use the battery pack. Because I feel like the batteries that are in it are already like going down. Anyway, like I showed him, he was super interested in when I was building that. And I taught him, the Vulcan live long and prosper. And now we do that every night when he goes to bed. And that was his idea. So children still have more space between the bones. So stuff like that isn't surprising. Oh, you would think I would know that, but I don't. I didn't. But yeah. Be prepared. Oh, so that was the other thing. You know how we had the asteroid facilities, the abandoned asteroid facilities in Pyro, which are, not very big. And I feel like they could definitely, like, now that we have this and Onyx and stuff, I feel like those could definitely use some polish and a little bit of a refresh. But it makes me excited for more. I love things that are built into asteroids like that. I just think it's the coolest sci-fi space setting. And so I'm really looking forward to more locations like this. I didn't even have a chance to visit the People's Alliance stations in the Keegar Belt, so I haven't looked in the interiors of those to see what they're like. I imagine it's more just Levski stuff, but I mean, Levski's cool because it's built into a giant asteroid, not quite moon. You know, um, I think it's just a really neat environment, and there's so much opportunity for really great storytelling. And with the mixture of assets versus something that's just all man-made. So be prepared. Teamwork. Miners, haulers, crafters, and fighters. Now's the time to band together. Success will demand more than a single trade. A breadth of skills is essential to uncover, claim, and secure the haul during your exploration rights. Back in action. Station repairs. Restore operations to the disused stations to utilize their full colossal capabilities in traversing the station and retrieving the wealth of rare resources within the asteroid. Scan each sector for the essential equipment you'll need to awaken its power. The other thing that's really cool about this, and we were talking about this yesterday, is not only like do you have to look around your environment, like the doors were a bit on the nose, but finding the other things in your environment really sort of force you to walk around and look in corners and stuff to find things and find hidden things. But not only is it great for that, but it also really you can tell they are setting the stage for FPS radar and scanning. Because how cool will it be to be going through environments like this where you don't know what's lurking around there? Walking around in Onyx, you don't know, where the enemies are, or creatures or anything. And so with FPS radar and scanning, you can do a scan wave ping and you can find things to interact with. They help you locate things, but then you're giving away your position. You could be alerting people. Maybe it'll even alert creatures. They can hear, pardon me, they can, do the whole dog whistle thing where it'll alert certain creatures or whatever. And so you can make that decision. It's a choice. Like, do I use the old Mark 1 eyeball to scan the environment, or do I use my radar and scanning built into my suit? And then, what am I wearing will determine how easy it is for you to find certain things. Will you be able to find the hidden door that's behind the minables if you're wearing a combat armor versus exploration or a more mining focused armor? It has the potential to really encourage people to build out your squad very Deep Rock Galactic-esque, where you have different people classed out. Alert people who say dog whistle, not what you want. Yeah. But I think that would be really interesting if if you do a scan wave ping, if it not only alerts people who are enemies, because some of them will be wearing armor with a radar that can detect that scan wave ping, and others won't, but you won't know that. But then for it to maybe alert creatures, they can sense that, be like, "Oh," it gets their attention, then it initiates that patrol behavior, so they come patrolling in that direction, and so that's a choice, that's a risk that you can take, and I really like that. The Aurora Mark II, so stoked that they did the wings, Vimeo, right? Or no, not Vimeo. Oh gosh, he's Josh Durr on X, Twitter. It's VX something. What's the guy who does the cutaways of the ships? VX Mio. Thank you. Yes. Oh, thanks. You don't want it? Okay. Yeah. He's the one that did the original Aurora Star Citizen concept art where the Aurora wings came out. The ornithopter looking flappy wings. And I mean, yeah, they don't flap, but it's still such a cool looking ship. Like, it's the ultimate starter now. And I love that they decided to go modular with it. I think that having more modular ships is, I think better than having variants, in my opinion. I like ships with modules. I love having that meaningful choice for players, in the ship of their choice, versus just having to buy a more bespoke ship. It'll be interesting to see what other modules they come up with in the future. It makes me very curious to see what a Titan Mark II would look like. Because people have been talking about the Mustang. The Mustang isn't an old ship, so like it makes sense that the Mustang would get its gold standard, and maybe get an art refresh, but it's not an old ship in lore. Whereas the Mark 1 Aurora is a very old ship, and so it makes lore sense that we'd get a Mark 2 Aurora. The Avenger Titan is also or the Avenger is also a very old ship. And so it would really make sense if Aegis came out with an Avenger Mark II. And then the Avenger was always meant to be, always talked about to be modular, but, they ended up doing the variants and stuff. But what if the Avenger Mark II went the same route as the Aurora and became a unified chassis, but with modules, and they gave it the Aurora Mark II treatment? I mean, I think that they could make a really sick, Space Penguin Mark II version. So it could be really interesting to see what they do with something like that. Meanwhile, crafting is here. As you and your crew blast off to Nyx, shiny new upgrades are making their way to the verse, including game-changing crafting to give you the edge in taking on 4.7 and whatever lies beyond. Crafting is here. Get your item fabricators ready and start your crafting journey with FPS goods, including armor and weapons. Earn blueprints from contracts and gather materials on your travels to get started. And remember, the quality of your resources will affect the stats of the things you craft. Find out more via our crafting gameplay guide, and we'll get to that shortly. The inventory is legit. Obviously, there's more functionality that they can add to it, and the back end that it's running off of still needs a lot of optimizations and feature work to get it up to snuff. But it is such a huge quality of life upgrade when it's working right from the old inventory. It does take some getting used to. We've got so much muscle memory with the old inventory, but I think it's very handy. It's very user friendly. It's really pretty. You can on the graphics rendering side, the UI, that part is much more performant. Like you can tell when things are lagging because it's the shard, the database, and versus your FPS, your frames per second when in inventory is, for me, is markedly better, and they're just getting started. Like there's still room for improvement. So this is a huge quality of life upgrade, especially now that we've got crafting coming in. So really stoked to see that. Don't care about the upgrades and such. Warbine, this and that, whatever. But let's go ahead and move on to the Roadmap Roundup. I can't always drink Empty Cruise Lux anymore anyway. So have a sip of my drink. They had to fix it one day, yeah. So, hello everyone. Every 2 weeks, we accompany the roadmap update with a brief explanatory note to give you insight into the decision-making that led to any changes. This is part of an effort to make our communications more transparent, more specific, and more insightful for all of you who help make Star Citizen and Squadron 42 possible. Just a reminder, the 1.0 column showcases features and content planned for inclusion in or before Star Citizen 1.0. This means you may not have to wait for the 1.0 release to experience them. As features content in the 1.0 column become ready, they'll migrate left into a point patch column for release. Be sure to check back every 2 weeks for the latest roadmap updates. With that, let's dive into this week's Roadmap Roundup CIG community team. So, notable changes for March 25th, and this was from Wednesday. We've preemptively marked the Alpha 4.7 cards as released ahead of our scheduled live publish happening later today. This was on Wednesday. Release view, Alpha 4.7. All of the following cards have been set to release as part of Alpha 4.7 going live later today. New hairstyles, light combat armor, heavy combat armor, claw salamanders, faction outfits, crafting tier 0, inventory rework, people service stations, QV breaker stations, new Wicklow ships offerings 4.7.0, weapons art, FPS weapons art refactor, Max Ox neutron cannon size 3, Ice adult Velokar, Ice juvenile Velokar, which are found, as far as I know, only at the breaker stations. And then, of course, they added the RSI Aurora Mark II, implementing the RSI Aurora Mark II, building upon RSI's legacy as the starting point of exploration, progression, and expedition. This card has been set to release. Pardon me. Ice Adult Valakar, Ice Adult, yeah, they're the QV breaker stations. The adult and juvenile Valakars, Ice variant. And then, let's go ahead and we'll open up the roadmap because we also need to see the what is still to. Interestingly, they so 4.7's on there. There's all the release things, gameplay, crafting, and inventory rework, locations. Okay, so they made it committed, but not released for Mission Pack 2. It says 4.7.0 for new Wicklow ships offerings, which suggests to me that there will be more in Point X. Okay, released. That's committed. Released. Okay, cool. So, all right. So 4.7, we are getting a content patch, a 4.7.1 patch. It won't be this week, but it's supposed to be 2 weeks from when 4.7 went live. So calendar. Hold on. Let's look at the calendar real quick. So it went live on the 25th. So, around Wednesday the 8th, sometime, not this upcoming week, but the following week is when we'll get the first 0.1 patch. And Jared said every 2 weeks. It's I think, quote unquote. I think he said every 2 weeks we'll be getting content patches leading up to 4.8. So that means that we should get 2 point patches in April. And the question is, will we get a third point patch before Invictus Launch Week goes live in May? And I think it'll be the 14th or the 15th is when it goes live. I'll have to look and see what day of the week Invictus goes live, because it's like IAE and it's always on a specific, like, third Thursday, third Friday or rotation or something like that. I forget. But so we should be getting at least 2, possibly 3 point patches on 4.7 leading up to 4.8. And so, but the only things that we know about coming, years ripping by. It's going by fast. The Star Citizen CIG is cooking. But so far we know about the Nyx missions pack 2. So they released more for, they just released some, was that in 4.6? And so adding a second pack of new missions to Nyx, while also expanding some existing missions to be system-wide, with the return of courier missions and other delivery missions. So it'll be interesting to see what all falls into that list. But because it says with the return of courier missions and other delivery missions, but what else? Is that what the extent of it is, or are there other things? So I'm curious to see what additional missions and content we have in Nyx coming in that pack. But there's also supposed to be the whole B is coming. Not sure if it's coming in the first .x patch, the first point patch, or the second, or even the third. We're not sure when the whole B is coming, but the whole B is on its way. And then we also saw in... I'm going to pull up the image. We also know the UTV is was shown off And so that should be coming. Um, and so the UTV is looking really cool, looking like it's gonna be fun to drive around. It looks like it's gonna hold at least a one SCU box along with tools and such. So that's gonna be a really fun little rover. Um, so UTV, Hull B, mission pack, and who knows what else. I'm hoping for more blueprints. I'm hoping for more blueprints added to missions. Um, so we shall see what comes, what sort of content that they can add in 4.7 leading up to 4.8. But this roadmap roundup gave us our first drop of what's in 4.8, and usually um, when they add things on the release view to an upcoming patch, they'll add more things as they get set to tentative. And just with what we have already, 4.8 is big, deep, impactful, important, and there's more to come, which is just wild to think about. So let's look at 4.8. And this is the sleeper right here, the refueling stuff. People are just sleeping on how much this signifies. So Alpha 4.8, first things first, refueling missions. And here, let's pull up the release view for 4.8 so we can we'll look at the descriptions in here, as well as the preview images that they have for it. Okay. All right. So, refueling missions, implementing refueling missions centered on servicing NPC ships. So, oh, and we know that Jared talked about there is a new refueling ship coming. We don't know if it's coming with Invictus. We don't know if it's coming after that. We just know that that there is one coming soon. I imagine it will come with Invictus in 4.8, but we don't know. But it's just exciting that they're giving um, content for people. The Starfarer has just been sitting there collecting dust. But not only are they giving content to Starfarer owners, mission content, um, but they are also adding another ship to the refueling lineup in order to take advantage of that content. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a variant of an existing ship. I could totally see a Golem variant, um, or a Argo refueler. Hopefully, it's not another variant of the Moth or the Mule, not Mule. Sorry, Mole. I like Argo. I love Argo. I like the Mole. I just wish the Moth. I like more unique ships. I'm not a huge fan of just doing variants of things. And with how great I think in terms of aesthetics, the SRV and the Raft has, I was really hoping for that level of quality with the Moth and the um the Moth just doesn't hit like a new design from Argo would have. But so not only will we get missions to provide refuel NPC ships, but players will also be able to request refueling via a beacon, which will initially be handled by NPCs. So they're saying that players will be able to take those beacons eventually, but initially they'll be handled by NPCs. That's the important part, though. It is this means that they are. Oh, Shori says, I hate the 3 turrets of the mold moth. They should have changed that on the moth and made the scrapers remote. And it doesn't bother me too much. I'm glad they enclosed them. I don't know if they've actually enclosed the mole since then. I haven't checked out the mole since then. I don't mind it so much. Um, it's just, like I I like unique ships, and you know, um, Argo has such a great aesthetic and art style and industry, um, industry look to them. It's like, I would have wanted to see something, another Argo take on things. No elevator, only negative 1 HP. Remote turrets are all well and good. I like the tactile experience of being in it. My concern is that it will be everything the Starfarer needed to be fixed. So instead of a Mark II, they made a completely new design which eclipses the Starfarer. Well, I don't think we're going to get a Starfarer size ship. And I would not be surprised if this refueling ship is just a refueling ship, whereas the Starfarer is meant to be able to gather fuel or gather gases and then refine to make fuel. I'm betting that this ship will be more of a sort of starter, smaller, intro refueling ship, whether it's cab only like a Golem variant, or something that has more interior to it. I don't know, but I don't think we're going to get a ship anywhere near the Starfarer is, and I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't have the other functionality that the Starfarer is eventually supposed to have. But the Starfarer absolutely needs its other functionality. But until we get refining gameplay and until we get fuel scooping, which they did talk about recently, it is supposed to be coming back. When, we don't know. But the Starfarer is going to need. I mean, they have talked about, reworking the Starfarer. It will get an interior rework, but the interior rework doesn't really affect being able to at least do refueling missions. And so it's a bone that they're throwing Starfarer owners. And who knows? I mean, they could be doing stuff in the background that we don't know about it. I feel like we'd kind of hear about it, but at least it's something. Because right now, no one ever calls for fuel because it's so easy to go to a station and get fueled up. But that's why this is important, because being able to not only use your Starfarer to refuel your friends, but also refuel NPCs and make money that way and earn rep. Because if there's a mission, there's a faction. And if you can do these missions, and you can earn rep and everything like that, and it will also eventually and things that you can use for that profession. But the sleeper thing is that this is back-end tech that is allowing for this. This is expansion of the feature set for the mission system that we have right now. So they have added stuff into the current mission system that will also be a part of the mission system version 2.0, mission system version 2, whatever it is. But that is what is allowing for this. We couldn't have this until they got the backend support from the mission system to allow for it. And so now we have backend support on the mission system that allows for us to get missions to refuel NPC ships. But the beacon system runs on the mission system. The beacon system is overseen by the mission system. And so this is updating the beacon system within the mission system to be able to request service from an NPC. This is functionality we have never had before. And if you can request refueling by an NPC, you can also request other services that will be coming. Now they have to build out the behaviors and functionality for it, but that's the easy part. This was the back end tech part was the hard part that they really needed. This was the part that was, tying Elliot's hands in what he could make in order for us to have missions, but also for us to request services. So this is opening the door for that. And it is having the back end functionality for it. So let's look at the release view for it. The other part that's really great, and that's why people are sleeping on this, is this is a multi-part thing that is huge news for Star Citizen development and for what can come into the game following on to this. Like, also, this is good anyway, but this is really good for what follows on. The refueling improvements that allows for us to be able to dock with NPC ships, or NPC ships dock with us, but also for vice versa, whether we're refueling them or they're refueling us. That is reworking the docking mechanic, ship-to-ship docking mechanic, because that's how refueling works. It uses the ship-to-ship docking stuff, and that's why refueling has been so jank. Is it's such a it has needed so much work for that to function appropriately. So it's the changes to refueling the gameplay itself, but also big improvements to how ship-to-ship docking works. Not only for how docking works, but also the ability for NPCs to navigate in that 3D environment to then initiate the docking behavior. And so that 3D navigation is part. If we've read about it in the monthly reports. That 3D navigation is enabled by the voxel, what are they called? The voxel navigation system, which is what NPC ships will use in order for their ships to fly around in the 3D environment and negotiate obstacles, as well as impact their flight behaviors. So if you've done the Vandal tech smuggler missions and you've seen how you can cheese the Vandal ships into crashing into the big asteroids because they had the old 3D navigation system that didn't let them navigate around those asteroids, or they'll crash into even smaller ones around other places. And so if NPC ships are flying around in open space, they do okay. But if there are obstructions, they don't navigate around them the way they're supposed to. If they're flying around an atmosphere, they don't navigate around the terrain the way they're supposed to. That's what the voxel system is supposed to fix. That voxel system also allows them to be able to move around slowly and then come in and dock. It's what will fix the NPCs when they go into land at a station. If you've ever done those missions where you have to do an escort and then they don't end up landing in the hangar and that gets broken or they end up crashing or whatever. This feature, this work is what's supposed to address those things. Now, obviously, it's not going to be perfect on the first go, but it should be it should be a big improvement to all that. And it should allow them to improve on that functionality going forward instead of having their hands tied and we're just like, yeah, we're waiting, Danger Open says, I want it on Super Mac and immediately melted it. This thing ain't ever coming out. Oh, the Vulcan? Yeah, the Vulcan can refuel, repair, and rearm. And we're going to get to that. Yeah, so the new ship isn't going to be the Vulcan because they didn't say the name. They would have said the Vulcan and we would have known the Vulcan was in development. But I also think that more of what's coming in 4.8 will allow for the Vulcan to start going into development, because the functionality for it will start to come into being. Simplifying the refueling process with simplified fuel deliver and updated docking to support mutual requests and automatic docking at close range, alongside with more impactful itemization for fuel capacity and transfer speeds. So I'm really interested to see an ISC on this, because this is a sleeper feature, and you may not be interested in refueling, but you will be interested in getting refueled. You will be interested in NPCs being able to dock. You will be interested in NPCs being able to fly more reliably in 3D environments around obstacles and navigate around things. Those are huge. And I don't think people are picking up on it. So the refueling improvements, implementing refueling and docking improvements, simplifying the refueling process with simplified fuel, blah, blah, blah. We just read all that. Let's read the refueling missions. Yeah, so there's a Starfarer refueling the, same language and everything. But I am so hyped for this, not because I have any interest in refueling other than give me my Vulcan, God damn it. But for all the things that this opens the door for, what this signifies in terms of what's been getting developed and worked on. The other thing, without reliable refueling, without being able to call on an NPC for that service, because we shouldn't have to rely on players. That's never been how CIG wanted things. Is you would always be able to get the same services from NPCs that you got from players. You pick and choose, but we need to have reliable reputation and such before player to player beacon answering comes along. Um, so medical getting revived by NPCs, that can come when they get the repair stuff and get Vulcan in, or ships like the Vulcan in. You can get repaired, you can get rearmed, and you can call, and the NPCs will come and do it. That's huge. But this also means that if you can get refueled via players more reliably because the fueling system's getting improved, or you can call for NPCs, it means that they can balance and change out um, uh, fuel consumption and range for ships. And so part of the reason they haven't done that, the part of the reason we've been able to flit about star systems and from planet to planet so easily and so quickly is because there hasn't been a ton of content. Because we're waiting for server meshing, we're waiting for Starkitect, and Planet Tech V5. Well, Planet Tech V5 is coming. Planet Tech V5 is coming with Starkitect. Benoit just talked about this last month. And so over the next year or two, we're going to not only see Nyx 1, but all the other planets of Nyx. We're going to see Pyro and Stanton getting remade with Planet Tech V5 and Starkitect. And the goal that CIG has had forever to have these ultra dense, not ultra dense, but to have a whole lot more locations and thus more content and missions and places to go and things to do and people to see and kill and steal their stuff. That the whole goal is that they don't want us. They want you staying within a planetary system for longer. They want you using quantum boost in order, pardon me, hiccup, and short quantum jumps to go around moons, around planets, and from planets to moons. So that way you are sticking around in a location and you're not transitioning a whole lot. And thus they can balance it so that way quantum travel from planetary system to planetary system takes longer, costs more fuel. You have to make more stops. But until we have reliable refueling, that's one of the, until we have Planet Tech V5, until we have Starkitect, and also, we'll see whether it's a prerequisite or not, but they are working on it in closed tests right now, the new flight model with QT boost. Those things are the recipe for, hey, these things come in, now they can rebalance fuel consumption. Now they can rebalance how much fuel is in the tank. Now they can rebalance quantum travel speed in order to further differentiate between ship archetypes, because they can finally realize the vision that they've been working towards, where you're not going from Microtech to ArcCore and back all the time. You're sticking around Microtech. You're not leaving Bloom and going to the next planet and Pyro back and forth all the time. You're not going from the Keegar belt into Levski every session. You're sticking around outside in the Keegar belt until you need to make a run to go into the inner system. That's always been the goal, and that's for systems that are small and extra small compared to the larger systems that we're going to be getting. Castra right now is set to be 22 AU, double what Nyx is supposed to be, more than double what Pyro is supposed to be, 4 times what Stanton is supposed to be in terms of diameter. So there's the significance of these things and what they mean when taken in the greater context of development and what we're looking at cannot be understated. Let's move on to the flight suit's G-force resistance. Implementing G-force resistance modifiers to flight suits, enabling players to choose specialized equipment for improving maneuverability and endurance. This is great. This is the beginning of specialization in your gear. Mitchell says, I can't wait to see them redo ArcCore, which is usually my homeworld. Oh, God, yeah. I cannot wait for them to come around and remake ArcCore into what it's supposed to be, with oceans and mountains, and not just cityscape across, but also to be able to use the surface other than going to Area 18. There's no reason to go to the other areas. And it has so much potential. And I hope it's a before 1.0 thing. I hope it's okay, they're going to get Starkitect and Planetech V5 in that will allow them to do the other planets, Castra, remake Stanton Pyro, finish Nyx, get to work on Terra. But I also hope that it will allow them to then go back and get to work on how do they make ArcCore work with Planetech V5, because that's a research project for them. But the flight suit's G-force resistance, this is great because it's our first real step into making your gear choice more impactful. So that way, if you want to go do, dogfighting, and you're flying around in your ships at higher speeds, you're not going to wear your armor and then go drop in and do a bounty mission. What the? Oh my. A meme in the memes channel of my Discord. You're not going to wear your heavy armor in your dogfighter, or even your medium armor, or even light armor. You can still wear those, but if without the G-force resistance modifiers, you're at a disadvantage when dogfighting. But you're also not going to land your fighter and then go hop into the gun battle down at Hathor, or land, and do a QV breaker station that's uncontested. You're going to have to switch out your gear. It's this is, they are making great progress, and they have to keep this up, because this has me really excited for people, not just wearing heavy armor all the dang time, and running around with a big old backpack, but doing what they talked about at CitizenCon, where you have these roles and archetypes, and you wear the gear to go with them, and you have to take care of that gear and maintain it, with the fabricators and crafting. I love that. So ship hangar service tier 0. This is, people aren't sleeping on this, but they're sleeping on the background significance for what this means. So implementing service gameplay updates that draw from resources stored in your ship's cargo grid to fulfill refueling, repair, and restocking requests via dedicated service hangars. So I think sooner rather than later, they need to say what ships will have this. I think it's obvious it's going to be the Idris. I think it's obvious that it'll be the Polaris. I hope that they can get it to working. Oh, shit.
Part of the ship. Part of the crew. Part of the ship.
Part of the ship.
Part of the crew.
Part of the
Part of
crew.
the
Part of the ship.
Part of the crew. Part of the ship.
Thank you so much for the raid, Sergeant Grim. Shout out.
Part of the crew. Part of the ship. Part of the crew. Part of the ship. Part of the crew. Part of the ship. Part of the crew. Part of the ship.
Oh man, we're gonna have to get through all the follows.
Part of the ship. Part of the crew. Part of the ship. Part of the crew. Part of the ship.
Hey, thanks for the raid, Sergeant. I really appreciate it. Hope you had a great stream. Hope you're doing well.
Part of the
we'll
crew.
have to catch up soon. We're sevens.
Part of the crew.
You're the best, dude.
Part of the crew. Part of the ship. 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 Part of the crew.
I'm gonna have to
Part of the crew. Part of
find
the
a way
part of the
to
crew. Part of the ship. Part of the crew. Part of the ship.
turn off the notifications, because whenever this happens, it just goes nuts.
Part of the ship.
And I know there's a way to do it. I just haven't
Part of the crew.
it
Part of the
in the
ship.
bot.
Part of the crew. Part of the ship.
This is my stream now.
Part of the crew.
Ooh, Medic Citizen.
Part of
07.
the crew. Part of the ship. Part of the crew. Part of the ship. Part of the crew. Part of the ship.
Oh my god. You guys. I'm feeling the love.
Part of the
I'm feeling
crew,
the
part of
love.
the man. Part
You
of the
guys are
crew,
awesome.
part of the ship.
One eternity later.
Part of the crew, part of the ship. Part
Uh,
of the crew, part of the ship. Part of the
hey,
crew,
07,
part
good to see you, Vermin
Part of the
Threads.
crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship.
Bald Brothers
Part
Unite.
of the crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship.
Bald
Part
is
of the crew,
beautiful.
part of the ship.
Here, while this is doing that, I need to pop my knee.
Part of the crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship.
Follows going through the
Part of the
roof.
crew.
Oh my gosh.
Part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship. Part of the
let's see
crew,
if I
part of
can-
the ship. Part of the crew, part of 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 the ship.
Wait, no, that's not it.
Part of the crew, part of the ship. 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 Part of the crew, part of the ship.
Okay, is that it?
Part of the crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew,
Spam.
part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship.
Still thinking about the ship, though. You don't want that ship in the GIF? I think that'd be a great ship. You thought they were done. Now you guys are just trolling me.
Part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship.
Let's see. How do I...
Part of the crew, part of the ship. 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 Part of the
Okay.
crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship.
I disabled it on sound alerts. So we should still see the updates in chat. If anyone else follows, we can test it. We're following and unfollowing on repeat. Timing is everything. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate all the support, folks. You guys are awesome. Again, to Star Jump Grim, thanks so much for the raid. Really appreciate the support. I hope you guys had a good stream. What were you guys up to on Grim's stream? What were you guys talking about? I saw the alert in my Discord because I have the notifications, but I didn't see the description. This evening this is episode 97 of the Pathfinders podcast. We are reviewing the Roadmap Roundup from Wednesday. What day was that? The 25th. We are just a few into the Alpha 4.8 stuff. We're just talking about the significance of these things. You were not talking about crafting. Okay. Are you being sarcastic? Because a lot of people have slept on this update, and what the lots of theory craft on Mark IIs. Ooh, okay. Yeah, I mean, we were talking about that too, because I'm with probably everybody. I haven't heard anyone say they don't like the new Aurora, but it makes me excited for the thought of a Avenger Mark II. The Avenger is an old ship in lore. It's due for a not only a gold standard but a Mark II. I don't know if we'll get a Mustang because the Mustang isn't an old ship in lore, but there's a lot of potential. It came out great. You want to talk about crafting? We went deep on Mark II and possible future Mark IIs. Okay, well, we are going to talk about crafting once we get through the Roadmap Roundup. But you guys just missed. I went on. I talked about how the refueling missions and refueling improvements are so huge for what Star Citizen is doing right now in the development. The refueling missions that's enabled by updates to the mission system. which is huge, because not only can we get missions to service NPCs, which we couldn't get missions to service NPCs in any way, shape, or form, but that is an improvement to the mission system, and then initiate docking with said NPCs. But the inverse of that is the beacon system runs on the mission system, and so now we can get beacons serviced by NPCs, which opens the door for anything else that they can create the behaviors for NPCs. NPCs can do for us. The docking improvements, not only for player-to-player docking, ship-to-ship docking for players, but also for NPCs is huge. Because if we can dock to them to refuel, we can dock to them for other things. If the NPCs can navigate to you to dock with you, then that's also showing that they are implementing the work on the 3D the voxel 3D navigation system for NPCs that they've been talking about in the monthly reports, which allows them to navigate in 3D environments much more reliably. So they don't crash into a planet when they're flying around an atmosphere. They don't crash into asteroids when they're flying around an asteroid base. The Vandal and Vandal tech smugglers can navigate around the great big asteroid instead of just plowing into it and you kiting them into it, and then the missions where you have to escort a ship to a hangar, it being able to reliably navigate to that hangar without crashing or actually land in that hangar. All of these things are things that will go a long ways towards fixing that gameplay, fixing those missions, fixing that functionality. So it's huge. It opens the door for so many things. NPCs responding to medical beacons and coming and reviving you, or coming and maybe even you wake up in an NPC ship that spawned and landed, and you spawn in the bed, and then you're able to walk back out and get back to what you're doing. I talked about that in a video I did a couple of years ago, called we need Star Citizen needs NPC trauma teams. So it's potentially really big. The flight suit's G-force resistance. We're finally starting to get significant modifiers and significant things that not force us, but very much strongly suggest you to choose the archetype, choose the role you want to be in, and not just run around in heavy armor all the time. The ship hangar services tier 0. Like, I'm an Idris owner. I'm super stoked for this. I think it's probably going to come for the Polaris. Fingers crossed that it will work for the 890 jump, for 890 jump owners. It would be really great if your Carrack with your C8 could also do it as well. Hopefully it's tier 0, so it's just going to be taking things from your ship's cargo to do these things. But that's the other thing, is that means that we will be able to buy fuel and store fuel. The question is, are you buying fuel tanks and then somehow refilling those fuel tanks? Do you just have to buy a fuel tank and pull it up on a freight elevator, and then when it's empty you have to get another one? Are people then ferrying fuel tanks to and from Idris's from stations? How's that going to work? I'm really interested to see that. But it's repair, refuel, rearm. These are behaviors that we can do. If we can do them, then NPCs will be able to do them. And even though it's tier 0, that means that the tier 0 functionality for other ships can come in. It is opening the door, along with other work that needs to happen, for the Vulcan to finally go into development. For ships like the Vulcan to go into development, that's what I'm excited for. Not just being able to do more with my Idris hangar. We talked about this. The other thing that the refueling is really great for, and this it coincides with the ship hangar services, is they can finally, along with Starchitect and Planetech V5, is they can finally start to rebalance fuel consumption, ship range, quantum travel speed, quantum travel range, around having greater density of locations and content in planetary systems, and having those support services that we need in order to make it so that way, if you do want to make those jumps, if you are out in the middle of nowhere, you have the support. You don't have to balance the game around you have to go to a station to get the support you need every time. It's really impactful in more ways than just the, oh sweet, we're gonna get the tactical strike groups missions. That's just the bare minimum of what this means for the game. Sorry, let me refill my cocktail. The vehicle command module. That is, so I have a prediction. So not only like we know that the Ironclad is coming. It's going to be a Drake Defense Con release at the end of May, which I have both Ironclads. Yeah, I'm a whale. Make fun of me. That's fine. I don't have other hobbies. My wife won't let me have a motorcycle anymore. Hey, the prisoner. Good to see you. 07. Heyo. Sorry, I missed the. Hold on, let me scroll back up. Yeah, the sky's the limit. Some things are more pressing than others, but the goal for CIG has always said their goal is for NPCs to be able to do all the same behaviors that players can do. Not just in terms of NPC crew walking around your ship and replacing fuses or taking a repair beam to a component and repairing it and such, but also be able to provide the same support services. So the question is, how far will they take that? But at least if we can get repair, refuel, rearm, NPCs coming out in a Vulcan, war coming out in a Vulcan, being able to respond to those sort of beacons and provide that sort of support, to see that finally coming and then unlocked by parts of development is super exciting. The command module, I love the Ironclad. We know that the command module is going to be coming for the Caterpillar as well. So great for Caterpillar owners. I'm also interested to see that. This is another byproduct of the updating the docking tech, because this requires docking to work. Imagine if you had your command module and docking, ship-to-ship docking worked as well for your command module as it does for your P-52, P-72, or docking for refueling. And you can't get your Ironclad to dock, and you can't fly it anymore. And then you just have to fucking claim it. Can you imagine how livid people would be if that's how they released it? Hey, Victura 07, buddy. Victura art sitting right behind me, place of prominence, next to my collectible constellation, the Mark III, Connie. Mark III from 2014, the diecast model. But yeah, I got that taped up there. Yep. Looking good. Yeah, the office is coming along. But the ship systems transfer, that tech being able to dock with a parent ship or dock with another ship and transfer authority, I feel like they're not just making that for the Ironclad. I'd be willing to bet real life money that they have another ship in the works that will take advantage of this. No idea what that could be. No idea what the other gimmick or the functionality would be, or how that would work. But I guarantee you this isn't going to be a one and done thing. They're going to reuse this functionality to make more cool ships. And that, as much as I like the Ironclad, I'm almost more excited to see what else they could do with it. I know one thing that some people had talked about when they first talked about that is, and we're, this is really interesting because we were talking about, I was talking about rebalancing quantum travel and refueling and all that. If you can do that with that, you can do the sort of Jedi starfighter thing where they dock with the ring thing in order to be able to go into hyperspace. Well, what if you can dock your small fighter or undock it from a quantum travel thing that has a big old quantum tank and has a quantum drive, and maybe even a power plant or whatever, um, in order to be able to say, okay, well, if I make this jump from across system, name your system from or from one planet to another. If I do this with my fighter, it's going to take me a lot longer. I'm going to burn through a lot more fuel. I'm going to do a lot more wear and tear on my fighter, and the components. But if I pay extra to have this docking thing, however that works, insert ship of your choice here, you could then allow it to be able to still fly, and move around and navigate, but then to be able to have that improved quantum travel ability, so that way you don't need or you don't have to say, okay, well, I need to borrow my friend's carrier to get this fighter from here to there, otherwise it's going to take me forever, or I need to pay or something like that. You can still do that travel in your ship, in your light fighter. It just costs you money, and it's additional upkeep of something else, and it's a little bit more limited use, and you want to make sure that you don't get, say interdicted, or you don't want to maybe jump into a place that's unsafe because maybe the undocking part takes a second or whatever. Um, it's a more player choice, but that's something that they can do with this tech that perfectly coincides with the refueling and the balancing changes that they can make now that that's all in. Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, the wolf, it it looks like the Jedi Starfighter. It has a whole lot of influence in that. And if there's a docking ring for it that gives you a bigger quantum drive and a bigger quantum fuel tank and maybe the power plant to go with, I don't know, you know, you guys are picking up what I'm throwing down. I think that's a super cool way to use this, this feature that was developed in more ways than what they have with the Ironclad. That gives players a lot of really great choice. Ooh, those cocktails not watered down with a fizzy water are too much sugar, too sweet. Well, I'm gonna suffer through that. New Wicklow ship offerings 4.8. Everybody loves Wicklow. Sarcasm font. Wicklow will be a whole lot better when it's more reliable, but we give Wicklow a whole lot of shit because of the RNG stuff that happened, because freight elevators can still, they're much more reliable than they were, but the way you have to interact with it is clunky as shit. And so Elliot knows he wants to make improvements to it. They have ideas, they have plans, but in the meantime, it's just meh. I have not done much Wicklow after I've had things disappear or not, before they got rid of the RNG stuff. I was like, okay, this is not for me. It's too much of a grind, and it'll get better, but it's definitely, for me, it's not ready for prime time. The Ultiflex crossbow. Somebody ping Nazarus, because he did a segment on this like 3 years ago, maybe more. Like, that's how long we've been doing the podcast about the Ultiflex crossbow, where, what was going on with it, and the fact that this is finally coming. Yeah, it's the Wicklow is just such a time sink right now because shit's borked. But yeah, the Prisoner, the transport system should improve Wicklow. Now, obviously, like the way that we interact with things and the way you turn things in can still have some improvements. I don't know if that sort of stuff will come with the transport, but at least having freight elevators be more reliable. That they have been getting better. They do have that strike team working on it, and it's a whole lot better than it was early last year. I mean, we all have to agree on that. But it still happens. And when it happens, when you're doing something like that, where you've been grinding like Fuck. That's such a swift kick to the junk. That's why I did it a few times when it first came out. And, just because I do that for everything. When something new comes out, I'm like, okay, I want to test it. I want to test it. I want to be able to have an informed opinion about it. I want to see how it works. I want to be able to provide some feedback. I want to be able to have conversations with other people and see what they've learned. Yeah, yeah, and that's the other thing that it's literally not only was there RNG, which they got rid of, but there was like we still have RNG for shards and how healthy shards are. So if your dice roll on the shard that you logged into is fucked, and you didn't find out until it's too late, like, ouch. But the Ultiflex crossbow, super cool, super cool. Um, I'm not a stealth guy. I never have been in real life. I'm not built for it. It's never been my bag in games, but I know a lot of people have been pining for this, and I think the design is super cool looking. I love the animations for it. Um, I like that it has the harsh projectile drop and everything. Um, the near silent fire mechanism, like it has a place in this universe, and I think it's getting this in game will also spur them to do other things with other weapons. So it'll be interesting to see like what other things this motivates them to do that's along the same vein. But I'm glad that people are finally getting their goddamn crossbow. I think it's been way too long. The plasma grenade, which is an area denial grenade. So I guess it's gonna have like a cloud of plasma or like a puddle of plasma, or I'm not sure how that's going to work. Like, is it gonna cook off like Willie Pete does? Because I haven't seen any. Here, let's get back to 4.8. Oh yeah, we don't even have images for it. Like, we have no idea what this is going to look like. But lock down an area and prevent enemies from pushing through. So um, I'm all for more gadgets, more weapon types, more variety, more tools for the different trades, combat or otherwise. I'm hoping that since they're working on the plasma grenade, that they're also like they talked about it in Star Citizen Live. They are working on the gadgets. Some of them are in Squadron. They just have to find the time and the schedule to bring them over. I want my breaching charge. Breaching charge, breaching device, both. I want to be able to blow the door and I want to be able to force the door open. Ooh, a wrist-mounted crossbow or like a wrist-mounted dart gun or something. Yeah, why are there claymores in the goddamn environment? Why are there laser trip mines that I can't fucking use? It's not fair. But I want those things. Yeah, wrist rockets. Or oh gosh, what's the superhero who's got the little mini rockets in their wrist? Oh, fucking goddamn Boba Fett. You know, uh, yeah, Iron Man has them too. Yep, Mandalorian. Yep. Yeah, that would be your little mini rockets. Ooh, yeah, the Martian ones. Those are cool. Those are cool. Or the Martian Marines. Yeah, that'd be sick. That would be super cool if it was something that was built into a specific armor. Like, it isn't a thing you equip. This is part of this armor. It's a built-in weapon that's part of the armor. But yeah, the plasma grenade should be really cool. The transport system. So we have, and this is a confusing thing. We had the mission system refactor and the transit system refactor for 4.0. They refactored those systems so that they would be compatible with server meshing. And they added some new functionality to them. But this is the Transit 2.0. This is the next evolution of it. And so this is a whole lot let's just read it and then we'll talk more about it. Implementing the new transport system, a full rewrite of transit across the universe, supporting trams, trains, and elevators with improved reliability and scalable technologies like server meshing and instancing. So, this is, like it says, it's a full rewrite. This isn't a rework. This is a full rewrite, and this is a 2.0 version of these systems after the rework that came with 4.0. I'm gonna have to go back and listen because I'm confused too, because I'm like, well, freight elevators are elevators, but they're not transit elevators, but they are transport of materials. And so I'm hoping that it includes freight elevators so that way they become more reliable as well. Because that's the other thing, is these things do need to scale. And that's part of the issues with the freight elevators at the Vandal Tech Smugglers, which I'm hearing is still breaking, even though it's supposedly fixed in PTU, is that with the freight elevators and other, and the other aspects, the other transit systems that are within areas that get streamed in and out for dynamic server meshing, get streamed in and out for instances, we have to have these things not break. And right now, these things break when they're getting streamed in and out of on and off of servers that are on a static mesh. And that's part of why things are breaking. Is they were reworked to work with static server meshing, but they're not, they don't work as reliable as they need to with the streaming in and out, with the way that they come back into the universe after being streamed off of a server. Because you leave a Vandal Tech Smuggler station and it disappears. It gets unloaded off the server until someone needs it again, and then it gets opened back up, and that can cause these things to break. Well, we can't fucking have that. You can't have an instance break, or anything when you're trying to do instance content. We can't have what we've been dealing with where you just keep cycling. Oh, let's try another one. Let's try another one. Let's try another one until we find one that works. Yeah, maybe it is Quantum Blueberry. I don't know. I need to go back and listen to that because I know he did talk about it. I just forget the verbiage was. The SCLs over the last 2 months have been insanely so chock full of information. It's hard to keep track of. Like, I'm having trouble keeping track of it. Well, and the ATC system is separate from transit. That's a different system entirely. We're going to get an ATC 2.0 as well. Yeah, and so I'm hoping that this includes freight elevators, or if not including freight elevators, that strike team is coming along. But the freight elevators need to have the same stuff done to them, so that way they work appropriately with server meshing and instancing. Because we obviously have freight elevators at locations that will be instanced, and we can't have them getting borked like they do right now at Vandal Tech Smugglers. And that's the other interesting thing is I never had a freight elevator break at Onyx that I can think of, but I didn't have need of a freight elevator at Onyx, so I don't know if they were working or not. But obviously, like, we need the freight elevators at Vandal Tech Smugglers if you want to get the good loot, because God, trying to pull the components back through the personnel elevators was such a fucking pain. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So fingers crossed. I've watched all the SCLs myself once, and then I've watched them with Space Tomato when he puts that up on YouTube. But there's still, like, I always do it while I'm folding laundry or vacuuming or doing the yard work or cooking or something, because I'm stay-at-home dad now. And so I'm not able to actively listen as much as I'd want. And so the details, because normally, like, I would listen and take notes. I'd be sitting at my computer watching and I'd have a Google Doc open. And so I haven't had a chance to do that, to really commit to memory all those super important details. Like the gist of it is sticking with my brain, but not all the really important details. The Aegis Hammerhead Gold Standard. Updating the Aegis Hammerhead to Gold Standard and implementing improvements in an updated interior art. So really looking forward to seeing what the updated Gold Standard Aegis Hammerhead looks like on the inside. The other thing is when they've talked about this in the monthly reports, they talked about how they've been breaking out the pieces in order to make the Aegis kit, because there's an Aegis ship coming up that Jared hinted at. So I'm very curious to see what that Aegis ship turns out to be, because he didn't mention the name, so it's not anything that we know about. So I'm very curious to see, because we haven't had anything legit from Aegis in a while. Pardon me. Star Citizen 1.0. Maelstrom, implementing a new physically based destruction system. This card has been set to tentative. I guess Maelstrom wasn't already on the 1.0 list, and so they added it. So that's great. I always assumed that it was, because they talked about it in those presentations, and so I think it might have just been an oversight. But it's good to have that as confirmation, because we know it's in Squadron, but the ships that it's in, and environments that it's in for Squadron is much more limited compared to what we have in the PU. So there's a lot of work that has to be done to convert everything over in the PU for Maelstrom, not only for ships and vehicles, but also environments. Everything's supposed to be Maelstrom. Yeah, and that's the thing, is Quantum Blueberry, I don't, like, was he just being facetious about the sharks with freaking laser beams? It would be cool and kind of funny if it was a different shark named ship with a different thing. I'd love to see another multi-crew ship from Aegis. Um, so who knows what it'll end up being. But yeah, and if you guys came in late, I tried to recap the beginning stuff for 4.8, and I released a few stuff for 4.7 is what we all know about. But this update is huge, and there's going to be more for 4.8 coming. So 4.8 is just going to be like 4.7 is a very important patch with the inventory rework and crafting tier 0. But this is just, it's going to be, just with what's in the patch, is going to be so much fun and so cool, and a lot of quality of life things and neat functionality and great content, but also what this signifies for development to come in the, what they're able to do in the near and not so near future is really encouraging. So a great roadmap update. Well, Genesis is Plantech V5 is before that. Like, there's not going to be a 5.0. We're just going to have 4 patches until we get to 1.0. 4 dot whatever. But if we go to, let's see, core, is that under core tech? Genesis, Starchitect, Genesis Planet Tech, Genesis Dynamic Weather. Then they added Maelstrom. So all that's on or before 1.0. I don't think Nyx will be 4.9. I think that we will see we will see Nyx 1 before the end of the year, but they've been very cagey talking about it. But when Benoit was talking about it, they said, we're the Plantech V5 and Starchitect. So we're not going to get we're not going to get it sounds like we're not going to get Nyx 1 without Starchitect. But I don't think we're going to see Starchitect, with that many locations on Nyx 1 until we get dynamic server meshing. But dynamic server meshing is supposed to be coming this year. So, yeah, the other thing that they talked about is instancing. And we don't know if instancing is coming in 4.8. I don't remember what they said about that. And so the The tactical strike groups. Jared said it was coming in 4.8. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what I heard. And those were supposed to be instanced. And but the first instance content was supposed to be Siege of Orison. So has that plan changed? Are they releasing the tactical strike groups, but they won't be instanced? We don't know. Rabbit07, there isn't going to be a 5.0. It's going to go 4.8, 4.9, 4.10, 4.11, 4.12. They said, was it this, during the 1.0 presentation, it's just going to be 4s until we get to 1.0. There is no 5. You know, unless they have said something different since then. But, you know, it's just like we had for the 3s. Yeah. I mean, yeah, Jade Star Watcher, they could change their minds, but that's the most recent information we had. And they did the same thing with the 3 series of patches. So we'll see. The reason that we're in 4 is 4.0 is was server meshing. Well, all this other stuff is additional like core tech, you know, but it isn't like server meshing is core tech, you know, and like I don't think any of these things is going to signify a 5.0. Otherwise, I think they would have said that already. You know, maybe Star Sim, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't know. We'll see. But you know, the numbers don't matter. Planet 3.0 was Planet Tech and Object Container Streaming. That was the big tech thing for 3.0 was Object Container Streaming. Oh yeah, we can't go back that far on this roadmap. But yeah, that's it for the Roadmap Roundup for March 25th. Be really interesting to follow the next few Roadmap Roundups. So that way, next few Roadmap Roundups leading up to 4.8, because they're going to add more stuff. 4.8 is going to be huge, which means that Invictus launch week is going to be huge. I mean, the battle cruiser, you know, man, was it 3.3.5? I thought it came out with 3.0. Oh man, taking me too far back. I can't remember. But let's launch into the crafting guide, because this is legit. This is a great guide. I also love this image. It's a really cool looking image. So I am not a crafting person. Like that's never been my gameplay in games. It's not my shtick. But I'm a looter. I am a compulsive. Okay, yeah, if you're right, you're right. But you know, they did say that we'll be on the 4.0 branch until we get to 1.0. So, but again, the numbers, like now with the numbers, we don't know, you know, what's going to be a point patch, what's going to be a whole numbered patch, in terms of, you know, 4.7 versus 4.7.1. It isn't there used to be a rhyme and a reason to it, and now it's whatever CIG makes it out to be. Yeah, I'm a loot goblin. I literally have I've my 0 to hero account has nothing but a cutter scout, or yeah, nothing but a cutter scout with the I forget the name of the paint, the orange and green one. I call it the loot goblin. My org, which I haven't done anything with, but I reserved the name, is the Scavengers Union. You know, like that's just what I do. Is I'm a loot goblin. You know, I'll even pull up. I'm gonna have a patch made. Like I have a patch made for my dropship for my main, my Valkyrie, which is the Vomit Comet. Here, I'll pull up the patch. So this is my Vomit Comet patch. Get closer. And so I need to have another patch made for the image. Let's see, it's here. No, desktop. So this is the loot goblin image that I had made. Yeah, that's me. If it bleeds, she can kill it. But yeah, I'm gonna have a patch made for that, like that one, but it'll have text below it. And I haven't decided on what text I'm gonna use for it. Like I've used this delivery, retrieval, and acquisitions. Here's the Scavengers Union logo. Yeah, if it ain't nailed down, yeah, that's the motto, man. If it ain't nailed down, I'm putting it in my goddamn backpack. But like, I want more to do with my loot. And now with looting, I have more choice in that, okay, I found this item. I can upgrade it or I can dismantle it for resources that I can use for something else. You know, it's I can when I'm looting, I can loot things for people for their crafting. Like there will be blueprints in the loot pool. There will be materials in the loot pool. It won't just be mining, an industry. So I'm very excited to have my gameplay be able to better service the game and tie in with how other people play the game. It's just that's what has me really excited about it. I'll do a little bit of crafting, myself, of course. Yeah, you need a shop ship. Gib BMM for all the people. Oh, and we need player trading. They were talking about that on Captain's Table. Was it last week? Yeah, we need a player-to-player trading app. So let's dive into this crafting guide because this stuff is interesting, but it's the down here, the future. This stuff is real juicy. So let's get back up to the top and we'll read through this and we'll talk about it. So, crafting your future. The history of Star Citizen's development has been a symbiotic one, with players and developers working together to build a universe of unprecedented size and scope. And in Alpha 4.7, we take our next major step forward in allowing you to shape and conform the universe as you see fit. Pardon me. This starts with hundreds of blueprints, allowing you to create custom FPS items with improved handling and performance determined by the quality of your materials. A system that will continue to evolve, intended to bolster individual agency and combine the efforts of all players throughout every aspect of Star Citizen's gameplay, like looting, like people who are compulsive looters who just can't help themselves. My dang chair. The seal in the hydraulic of my chair is going out, and so it keeps sinking down over time. And I was wondering why I was so much lower relative to the camera. Whether you're the miner who collects raw materials or the salvager collecting unique components, the refinement specialist producing the highest grade commodities, or the long haul trucker delivering everything to where it's needed most, the mercenary who hunts for the latest and rarest blueprints, or the combat specialist who serves as both client and protector. The crafting journey that begins here with Alpha 4.7 is an essential element to realizing the living, breathing, interconnected universe we're building, and is one of the most exciting additions to the universe this year. Below we'll share with you the first steps of this adventure that come online with Alpha 4.7, where item fabrication debuts, giving you the ability to craft your own FPS items, improve base stats, and customize your Star Citizen experience like never before. Yeah, I'm not necessarily the guy that wants to do the crafting, but I am the person that wants to find the blueprints for people. I want to go out on the adventure for the person that I'm friends with who is more just into industry and hanging out at their base and crafting stuff, and refining and everything like that. And I want to come back, all scarred and beat up and dirty, and be like, look what I found for you, boss. I found this blueprint. Oh, sweet. We can finally make that. We've been looking for that one. I want to go treasure hunting. You can replace the lift or a device to lock it at one height. Yeah, I need to call the company that I bought it for, because it's a refurbished Herman Miller. And see, I've already started to sync again. It's a refurbished Herman Miller, and it's less than a year old, and so it has a warranty. So I need to have them send me out a replacement piece or something like that, see what they want to do about it. Because I like to sit up a little bit higher, and I don't want to keep sliding down. Yeah, well, it's under warranty, so it's a them fucking problem, not a me problem. But it's a very comfortable chair. It's a Herman Miller, but I couldn't have. I'm not paying retail for a brand new Herman Miller, but a refurbished one was within my. Yeah, a refurbished one was within my budget, but the refurbished one comes with a warranty and everything, and all that. So I have to figure out what they want to do with it. I just haven't gotten around to it because fucking kids, man. Yeah. I don't know about you guys. I like the UI for the crafting menu. I think this is easy to read, easy to use. It's functional. It's new user friendly. I think they did a good job with it. I'm sure there's room for improvement. I don't have any gripes with it yet. So resources and quality. This adventure starts with using resources first gathered from vehicle and FPS mining. So first gathered. They're going to be adding in all the other resources as well coming in, but for now it's just FPS and vehicle mining. And I wish the FPS mining had more to do with it, because right now, from what I have heard and read, the only thing that the gems get used for is the volt weapons. Yeah, it's a straightforward UI. They don't need to gussy it up or anything like that. Like, this is simple and user friendly and clean. I like it. It works. It's easy to navigate. Don't don't make it too fancy. Throughout the universe, these resources now have value between 0 and 1,000. This value is instrumental in determining the traits of any crafted item that uses it, so making the effort to search for high-quality materials can be a valuable endeavor. While every resource in the verse now has this quality value, only some are used in blueprints for Alpha 4.7, with the intention that every resource in the game makes its way into the crafting loop in later iterations. I hope, and I will be disappointed if they don't have additions to crafting with every patch like they do Wicklow. Like, if they can add shit to Wicklow, they can add shit to the crafting, the blueprint library. I don't shoot cows until the cows attack you. Then would you shoot the cows? If they've got mad space cow disease and they're like, Jade Star Watcher. Yeah, there should be a lot more use for gems. I'm totally with you, Rabbit07. Yeah, gems should be in energy weapons. Gems should be in anything that's electronic, I feel like. I don't know. Yes, if they attack me, but I'm in the Preserve All Wildlife camp. So you would attempt to negotiate with the Kazi Grazer before you shot it. Got it. I'm waiting for the turn in at Whammers. Yeah, Whammers is they need fresh beef. They have to stockpile their cuts of their ground Kazi grazer in anticipation of serving Invictus launch week. Yes, I want to know why it wants to. Well, in order to know why it wants to hurt you, Jade, you have to craft the device that lets you talk to animals. It's the Dr. Doolittle armor with the special helmet. What about Kazi Grazer eggs though? Are you gonna make a Kazi Grazer omelet? A Vulcan mine? Oh my god! Imagine if they put that as an animation where you could walk up to a Kazi Grazer. Your mind to my mind, my thoughts to your thoughts. Good grass. You like grass? Okay, don't eat eggs either. All right, Kazi Grazer's not for you. So what about fish? Are you a pescatarian? Because I mean, we can't do anything with the fish that are, because there's fish boids in game, isn't there? Or no? Or am I thinking about something else? Anyway, sorry. I digress. I'm very much looking forward to salvage materials coming in. Now, I don't know if they have said if salvage materials will only be for building larger things, or how that's going to work. But it's going to be interesting to see like what we end up using for constructing ships, what we end up using for constructing buildings, what we end up using for making medicine. The only crafting that I'm really interested in is I want to be a drug dealer. Let's get cooking. I want to find all the blueprints for the medicines, and I want to make. I want to go find the different plants and other things that you can use, and then refine those and research those in order to make the most potent this is and that for being a space medic. Yeah, a lot more flora and fauna for medical crafting. Yeah. I want to, inadvertently lick a leaf and find out it's poison and, poison. you know, that's the crafting that I'm into. It'll be, and the other thing that's interesting about that is, we know that there will be different crafting machines. And so I want to see what my crafting table will look like for making medicine, and medic related stuff. Yeah, that's where I'm at. Blueprints to collect and craft. Blueprints are digital recipes for how to craft an item, and they inform you about the resources and quality requirements of a given item. To begin your mission to manufacture, a small collection of blueprints is made automatically available to you immediately. You can access your collection of blueprints through the screen on any item fabricator. We need a blueprint app in the mobiGlas. While this allows, and we need to be able to track blueprints, so that way like, hey, I'm tracking this blueprint. I need to find these materials, so you're not having to constantly reference it back to it. While this allows everyone to experience crafting almost immediately, the real adventure lies in collecting the majority of blueprints through mission contracts throughout the verse. The old Vulcan $5 chicken mine. Ooh, yeah, hydroponics. Yeah, oh yeah, farming. You have to go out and find, collect the seeds and bring them back to your farm in order to grow the stuff, to then harvest it, to then be able to refine it, to then be able to craft the best medicines. Like, that's a loop. That is a loop right there. In order to get my space friends high as shit when they get shot, be like, oh man, that looks like it hurts. Your legs on backwards. Let's get you fucked up, bro. In Alpha 4.7, the oh my God, Victoria. Star agriculture. Yeah. Starming. It's star farming. Oh my gosh. In Alpha 4.7, the available blueprints focus on FPS weapons and armor, including many variants of base items you may already be familiar with. It is also important to note that, like many aspects of the continuing development of Star Citizen, blueprints requirements are subject to changes in future patches as the system evolves and expands to include additional game loops like refining, salvage, and research. Research is something I'm really interested in. Being able to, how is the researching going to work? Like, you get the blueprint, and how do you research to do you research that blueprint to upgrade it to the tier 1 to tier 2 blueprint? How does that work? Yeah, we're Victura has the trademark on star agriculture. You heard it here first. You were all witness to it. No one can claim it. No one can put it on their merch without giving Victoria a cut. For meds at Pharmaceuticals. Oh gosh. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Oh geez. As well as the inclusion of newer blueprints. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how research goes and being able to experiment, especially like, I'm talking about with the drugs. Like, okay, how does research go? Like, I've got the base blueprint for, for Hemazole or whatever. And, I've got the base recipe for that, but do they then take that recipe and add in another ingredient and then, run that through the crafter, and then that says, oh, okay, well, that didn't do anything, or that gave you this new effect, and it's just trial and error. Like, what's that process look like? That's what I'm really excited for. Um, the pharmaceutical research. Yeah. Um, the item fabricator. So this is your crafting machine. It can be purchased from shops located at select shops, that doesn't read right, in landing zones or space stations, and like all large inventory items, it can be retrieved and stored via the freight elevators. Note, if you participated in the recent Lifeline for Levski event, you may already have one waiting for you. Is the one we have the base one? Because I thought we weren't getting our Alliance Aid branded one until 4.8, until Invictus. Is the Alliance Aid one in game? I'll have to check that out. I haven't looked yet. Maybe after the podcast, I'll log in real quick and take a look. I have 3 base. Yeah, and that was my question too, because in PTU I had 2 of them. Okay, 4.8 Medic Citizen. Okay, cool. AA1 is not, but you have a loner. I guess we have a loner for it. Is that why? Interesting. Yeah, that was why I didn't get to test much crafting in PTU, because I was dismantling things that, like, because a lot of the things have blueprints that are, I don't remember if they're subscriber items, but they're rewards that I've gotten that are just in my inventory, with each patch. They're long-term things. And so I was just seeing like what I could dismantle and what I couldn't. And some things I could dismantle and I got some resources, and other things I couldn't. But then after trying a whole bunch of things to dismantle, then I couldn't put things. It was I kept on borking. I borked my my fabricators, and so I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna go do breaker, QV breaker station, and I'll test crafting it another time. You only get a standard fab, no AA skin. Okay. I'm looking forward to getting my AA skin one. And that's the other thing that like we'll be able to craft crafting machines. And you'll be able to modify the properties of your crafting machine. Like, what properties will those be? Like, how long does it take to craft? Like, how much power does it draw? Is your crafting machine more efficient and uses less material, less materials for each blueprint? Is it more durable? Like, all sorts of good shit. Item fabricator. This is your crafting machine. It can be purchased from shops located, blah, blah, blah. It can be treated and stored via freight elevator, et cetera, et cetera. Moving an item fabricator can easily be done via tractor beam and attaches easily to cargo grids, allowing them to be placed in certain ships for crafting on the go, and serves as your primary interface for accessing your blueprint library and the crafting process as a whole. Now, I have heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if you have your fabricator on a ship and you have, say, a box on that cargo grid, that same cargo grid, can your fabricator access the materials or access the inventory of that box? Like, can it pull for, if you have materials stored in that box, can it pull from them to craft? Can you tell it to deliver into that box? Or does it only pull from the ship inventory and or deliver to the ship inventory? Because that's what I want to, that's what I know, that's what I haven't tested. And I've heard rumblings. Yeah, it should, but I haven't confirmed for myself, and I've heard people talk about it. Right now, fabs can't work with ship inventories, regardless of whether it's a crate or like your personal inventory on the ship. The singularity was crafted by a crafting machine. Crafting machines. Jeez. If fab is in a ship, it will only work with the local inventory. So yeah, let's make the, yeah, I think that, like, because of the way looting works, that if you have resources on the grid, whether it's in a box or not, but obviously a box would make the most sense, that it should be able to access the resources on the grid, and you should be able to deliver to the grid or deliver to a box. Because it should work the same way, whether it's a fabricator, whether it's a refining machine, so that way you can label your boxes, and if they're within range, you put your box within range of this, and then it shows up on the tab and it says, okay, I want to pull resources from here.
Just become best friends. Yep.
Hey, Victoria, thanks so much for the sub. Really appreciate it, buddy. Thank you so much. I think that's how it should work. I'm with you, Mistral 19K. I don't want it pulling from like the whole inventory. Like, the local inventory should be your ship. If your ship is, parked out here, it shouldn't pull from anything out here or anything like that. If you're in your hangar, okay. But like crafting on the go should be, it should be user friendly. It should make sense. It should be efficient. And I think that with the changes that they're making to how boxes work and everything like that, I think things should work if they are on the same grid, is what I'm saying. It doesn't need to be too granular where you can also access, your personal inventory and your locker, 3 floors up on your Idris or something like that. But if it's stuff is on the cargo grid, the same grid as your crafter, it should be able to access it and vice versa. Yep. Yeah. I'm with you on that one, dude. Totally. So inside the item fabricator is a cargo grid, which can be used for the input and output of resource items and resources and items. However, when placed within your hangar, the unit has access to your local inventory as well. Your ship has an inventory, so come on, make it work. At present, there are 2 key functions of an item fabricator: crafting and dismantling. Crafting. To craft, select an option from the interface of available previously collected blueprints. These will be highlighted amongst the unavailable ones still waiting for you to discover. Once selected, you'll find the list of materials required, but remember to consider their quality. Manually assigning materials from your local inventory with specific qualities will cause the displayed item stats to increase or decrease based on your choices, or simply using the autofill function to let the system pick for you. Mixing qualities may result in an average quality value. Yeah. the other thing that the inventory doesn't do, or at least it didn't do for me in PTU, and I haven't looked in live, is the item stats from your crafted item don't show up in the inventory. Correct me if I'm wrong, but did they get that working for live? Anybody? Bueller? Oh, and I'm sorry. The other thing I have to mention, and thank you, Victoria, for the sub. I really appreciate it. Just so you guys know, because I know a lot of you guys are still hanging out from the raid from Star Jump. I don't keep any monetization for myself. When I get a Twitch payout, and I actually owe Stack Up money. But when I get a Twitch payout, when I get a YouTube payout, I donate the money to stackup.org, so I don't keep any of that money. So if you subscribe because you hate the ads, or if you suffer through the ads, just know that that goes to stackup.org. Stackup is a nonprofit that connects veterans and members of the military with video games and gaming communities to combat the effects of PTSD and being deployed, separated from your friends and family and your support groups. So I'm a infantry Marine veteran from 20 years ago. But I'm also a veteran and a currently serving member of the Army National Guard as an Army flight paramedic. And so I believe in their mission. I'm here as a part of a community, following and playing Star Citizen, being a part of my Discord where we play other games as well. This is how I take care of my mental health. This is my therapy. You guys are my unpaid therapists. You guys are paying me to be therapists. And so I pay it forward and I contribute that to Stack Up. So if you like the sound of that, you think it's a good cause, I would really appreciate your support if you consider subscribing. But just being here and being a part of the conversation, being a part of the community, is really really impactful and means a lot to me. Goggins going out for PJ school. Crazy. You know what I won't be doing? Going out for PJ school. I've got one. It's gonna be hard enough for me to get this shoulder back and rehabbed and get back to doing my job. There's definitely not there's a non-zero chance that I don't get my full range of motion and full strength back, and I don't get to go back to work. The Army puts me out to pasture, so we'll see. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be a Marine right now. I'm good. Yeah, I was an active duty Marine from 2003 to 2007. I did 2 deployments to Iraq. I wouldn't change a thing. But yeah, it was it was an experience that like nothing else, and I'm grateful for the experience. But I'm glad I'm a filthy flight medic riding around in my helicopter right now and not pounding ground in the desert in the Middle East. Yeah, Mistral, I see the shoulder specialist on the 1st, and so that I'm hoping when I see them is when they decide, hey, is it going to be PT? Is it going to be surgery? Based off what my MRI said, I think it's probably going to be surgery, but I don't know. Maybe it'll be injections in PT. No idea. Yeah, that's the hard part is for my job to be flight crew, I have to have full range of motion and full strength throughout that range of motion to get back up on a flight status. So if I don't get full return to normal, then the Army will just say thank you for your service and medically retire me, because I'm getting this line of duty. So I don't want to. I love my job. I love what I do. I have a lot of things that I still have yet to accomplish that I want to do that are part of my career goals. But if that's what happens, it is what it is. There's nothing I can do about it. I just have to put my best foot forward and hope for the best. Yeah, Mabel would transplant Chesty Puller's brain. Yeah, like on Futurama. Oh man. So let's keep going. Once you have your item selected and material set, you can begin your crafting job proper. Crafting item crafting times will vary depending on the size and quality of the item, and multiple jobs can be set up in the crafting queue. Once a job has been completed, you'll see it in the history log tab within the queue screen. Crafting and dismantling have their own distinct queues, allowing you to have multiple crafting and dismantle jobs running simultaneously. Here's another question. I've heard that some of the crafting times can get pretty long. Does this work offline like refining does? Can I start crafting and then set it to, queue up a whole bunch of jobs and then log out for the night and then come back? When will they be done? Has anyone done that yet? I don't know. I don't know the answer to this question. I haven't tested it. This is why I want to get in and play tomorrow night, so I can actually start doing some things. But I'm going to have to get some blueprints, and then I'm going to have to grind some materials. So it'll be a little bit, but that's going to be the plan for this week. Dismantling. As you might surmise, dismantle allows you to convert items back into resources. In this first release, you can dismantle most FPS items found in shops, loot, or crafted by players. For items found in loot or purchased in shops, dismantling these will provide materials of their default quality values. For player crafted items, dismantling will provide you with materials of the same quality used in the original construction, but at a reduced quantity due to the manufacturing and dismantling process. I like this. With item recovery, tier 1 coming, and then hopefully tier 2 and so on coming, with us being able to loot people again and loot their gear, I'm very much looking forward to being able to loot someone's crafted stuff and be like, I'm not really into this item, but they made a really nice item, so I want those nice materials. And it will save me time versus having to go out and look for it. Can you imagine getting owned by a drone? IEDs is one thing, but drones are crazy. I think we're at the end of infantry. Yeah, it's scary. It's the same thing for aviation. Like, I watched a video the other day where a Ukrainian drone, they kamikazed it into a Russian alligator. And like in Syria, the drones were a threat, and so medevac was having to have really short dust off times because they were worried about, like, hey, they landed, they know that we landed, the drones are taking off, they're on their way, they've got this much flight time, we have to be off the ground and in the air, and so we can get up and away and out of the range of the drones. Like, it's fucking nuts. Like, my job is hugely affected by drones. What they're talking about is, like, if we ended up in a pure conflict like that, where I would my helicopter base would be way rearward, and then we'd fly halfway to the front lines and we'd land, and then we'd meet up with a ground vehicle that's hardened against drone attacks, and then they drive us up to what essentially is a tier 3 bed, to pick up our casualty and load them back up into the ground vehicle, and then drive them back to the aircraft, whether it's my aircraft or another aircraft rendezvous, depending on how long we've been on the road, and then fly all the way back to the base. And either they get treated at that base, maybe brought back to the front lines or stabilized, and then, flown back to the United States via CCAT, or we fly them and we rendezvous tail to tail with a C-130 with a CCAT team, and they fly them direct back to the United States where they get treated. Craziness. Yeah. So, on to the real juicy bits today and tomorrow, because a lot of people didn't even know that this was all the way down here at the bottom, or haven't even looked at this guide, because they're like, oh, okay, well, I watched the video, I'm going to learn how to do things in game. TOW is the TOW missile. Is that what you're talking about, Danger Hobo? Because that's from our time. Yeah, fiber optic cable. We are tremendously excited by this addition to the game and what this step means for the universe as a whole. Like every feature in Star Citizen, crafting will continue to grow and evolve through subsequent releases, connecting as many aspects of life in the verse as possible, and been giving you as the player more agency and control over your experience than ever before. That said, we also wanted to share with you a few select details about where the crafting system goes from here, and you can find those below. Terminator T1000s. The future of crafting. This is an inexhaustive, so not everything, list of select improvements already in development related to crafting. Drink. No, the tow missiles were, God, what was the range for that? I never got to fire a tow. I got to fire a SMAW. I got to fire a SMAW and a javelin, 60 millimeter mortar. Those and obviously crew served machine guns because I was a machine gunner. But yeah, I think the most interesting thing about all the drones is the development of drones is currently ahead of the development of counter drone e-warfare. Fired a lot of AT4s. And these sort of things always leapfrog. And so the counter drone stuff is going to come, the counter drone e-warfare is going to have its generational leap. And then it's going to make drones obsolete for a period. The people who are over reliant on drones will be up a creek because you will have more conventional stuff that is protected by counter drone e-warfare. And suddenly conventional warfare will, well, yeah, you have lots of big butterfly nets, but that's just to catch the drones so that way it doesn't, it's just like we had the metal cages around our vehicles in Iraq that would, the RPG hits it and it blows up, but it, instead of hitting your actual armor, it blows up and it just dissipates all the heat against the side of the armor and it can't penetrate. Well, you have that for drones, so that way they explode next to you and they rattle they rattle your cage. But right now the ability to disrupt communication with drones, because it's all wireless, right now that hasn't caught up to how capable drones are. Once that catches up and you can just drive around with a thing that's a little thing that's attached to your vehicle that basically creates a protective bubble around you, or you could even have something that's like carried in a backpack. You'd have, now you've got a radio guy and a guy carrying the drone e-war thing that creates a protective bubble, and anytime a drone flies into your bubble, drops out of the sky, it's dead in the water. A constant EMP type thing. That's going to happen. Whoever develops it is going to make a fucking mint, but then we're going to be back to conventional warfare, with people doing opportunity stuff with drones, but it's it's not going to be like what it is right now. We just haven't reached that point. It's going to happen. Aircraft will be flying around with these things. It's just like the technology to jam missiles and everything. E-war will catch up eventually. We're just not there yet. So, general expansion for crafting. Additional items including, but not limited to, vehicle components and weapons. I love salvaging vehicles. I love EVAing into a vehicle and stripping out its parts. I can't wait to be able to salvage those parts for materials. And I'm really looking forward to hearing more about refining, so that way you can say, okay, I've got this level of material. What can I do to refine it to make it a higher quality? Like, obviously there will be loss involved, and maybe I have to add in other things, reagents or catalysts or whatever. But I want to be able to take, 500 CSCU of Hadnite and turn it into 200, Hadnite 500 and turn it into 200 Hadnite, 700 with some effort. That would be my thought, something along those lines. I don't know. I'm for purifying, but I think it should be at a cost in terms of time and resources. Like you can either spend the time and the effort running around using your radar and scanning for looking for those high quality ones, or you go for the low quality ones, but then you have to get a whole lot more along with something else to go with it, or some things else to go with it, and then do the refining process to then get it. And then like it ends up being 6 one half dozen, same amount of time and effort put into it. Yeah, and high quality refineries, because you have to craft your refinery or build it or whatever you want to say. But it becomes the same amount of time and effort into doing it. It's just a different path to the same outcome. And that way, there's more of a use for lower quality materials, because otherwise people will just fly on by it, or just do them for material missions um for factions. They become otherwise useless. And so if you can't purify them through another process that's balanced against the time it takes to hunt for those, but that creates another job. That creates another part of the loop. Oh yeah, lower quality mats, will have lots of uses and everything. You're gonna have reasons to use them, but I feel like you should be able to also use them to refine them to a higher quality mat, but at a loss, as well as it's a loss of time. It's a loss of that initial, some of that initial material, and you have to add in things to it. It's not just a condense 500 to 200 and it becomes 700. It's condensed 500 to 200 plus the amount of time, plus the power and wear and tear on your refinery, plus I have to come up with, this much of the reagent, catalyst, whatever. It's a recipe. You have to have the blueprint or something like that, or you have to research it. I don't know. But I think it's another loop. I think it's another it's part of the refining profession to be able to refine things into higher quality mats, in order to get the crafted or built thing with the properties you want, without having to necessarily find the higher quality material in the first place. Because people can do the radar and scanning part. Well, and that's the thing, is that CIG will have to balance it. They'll have to say that, okay, well, it will be if you add in the player choice of, okay, do I want to spend my time hunting and just flying around scanning things, or do you want to spend your time refining? If it's 6 one half dozen, in terms of, okay, well, you'll spend this much time collecting the additional materials you need for the catalysts and reagents, and then doing the process itself. It takes longer. I feel, as long as it's, all things being equal, there are always going to be beta chasers, but I think people also need to have the option to choose, like, I'm really not interested in just flying around and using my radar and scanner. Or I don't want to pay someone to find them for me. I have this much of this quality. I want to turn it into this much of a higher quality. Yeah. So additional items, including but not limited to vehicle components and weapons, integration with base building for crafting entire vehicles, that we knew, additional stats for all craftable items to provide increased variety and customization, catalysts, optional items which unlock additional benefits when included in crafting jobs. Oh boy. That's what I'm interested in, is the experimentation that goes into it. So like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to research this. I'm going to add in this other thing and see what happens. However they make that work. Hey, I've already crafted 10 of these. I'm pretty good at it, but what happens when I do it this way? I've got extra materials. Why not give it a try? NPC shops pay more for higher quality materials. That'll be great. Crafted gear may be looted from select NPCs or found in crates. Dismantling this loot will result in appropriate quality values on the materials. This is what I'm hyped for. I want to go do my looting while I'm running missions and dungeons and stuff and be able to find crafted gear instead of making it myself and be like, oh, look what I found. This is a top tier rifle. This is a top tier set of gear, top tier components or something, and maybe I already have one, or maybe I want to trade it to somebody, or maybe I want the materials out of it. I put it into my crafter and I say, oh, it'll get me this quality, this, and this. Hell yeah, I can use that to make this thing that I actually want versus this thing that I found. Hey, maybe it's not something I'm interested in. Maybe it's not something, it's not my style of weapon, or it's a stealth component and I don't do stealth builds. You know, but I can dismantle it for higher quality materials that I can then use to build what I want. Yeah, hard to optimize. I don't want people um to I don't want people to everybody to do the same most optimal thing. I want people to choose the thing that is most optimal for their play style, for the play that they are interested in. I like radar and scanning. If I'm going to go resource hunting, I want to fly around and see the sights and scan things down and use my radar. Um, I'm not interested in the refining gameplay, but I want people to have that option. Refining is a gameplay loop. Refining, we're going to have refining ships. I want um, lots of options for those people to be integrated within this loop. This next part also has player trading will support transactions of quality materials and crafted items. This cannot come soon enough. Oh my God. Yeah, they're working on the social apps, the social aspect of the game, but oh man, like even if it comes in 4.8, which I don't think it will, um, it can't come soon enough for people wanting to craft. Um, Base building will add additional support for player operated stores and advertisements. Advertisements is interesting. I'm not sure what they mean by that. I think that could be very interesting. They haven't really talked about that. Yeah. Oh yeah. The people talk about how balancing the flight model is a lot of work. The amount of the balancing for this is just going to be endless, forever and ever and ever. Before we get into blueprint acquisition, I just need to take a quick break and run and use the bathroom. Okay, I'm back. All right, let's continue. So blueprint acquisition. This is another thing as a looter I'm very excited for. Yeah, Rabbit oh 07 and Mistral 19K. I am totally picking up what you guys are throwing down because I don't want everybody to get I don't want people to get funneled into things. I hate where everybody gets funneled and you just see a whole bunch of people, you know, running around doing like three different, things with very little variation. Like everybody finds the meta and no one does anything differently and there's all these other options and other gear. I have never played that way. I cannot do that. It's like I have an aversion to it. I'm no interest in playing the meta. I have, oh, I like this. This is fun to me. Even if it isn't good, it's fun to me. Blueprint acquisition. So blueprints can be granted from physical data pads discovered in the verse. This is the part I'm super excited for. Data pads are one-time use. Data pads can be sold or gifted to other players before use. So this means that they can be found in the loot. You can find them in a box. You can find them on the body of a defeated enemy. They can be lying around. This is what I want, because that's the other thing as a looter. Not only do I want to loot stuff to find maybe crafted things or high quality materials within the loot. I want to find them, and I'm more interested in finding them and bringing them back for other people. I'm really not going to be the guy that's sitting at my crafting machine making stuff and researching stuff too much, other than probably medicine. But I want to go out and do the content in the game that provides these blueprints, provides these high quality materials for people, and then bring them back and be like, hey, look what I got for you. Isn't this cool? And to find, I have a friend who's really interested in crafting and refining and everything, and be stoked about what I found out in the world for them. Because maybe exploring these dungeons or doing this and that content isn't for them, but it's something I'm interested in doing, and we can work together and be like, hey, look what I got for you, and now you can make it for us, and that is totally my niche, my gameplay. And then being able to find the blueprints, and then when they do have that player-to-player trading, the marketplace, be like, hey, I've already got this blueprint. I don't need two. I obviously don't need two of them now, so I can sell it to someone else. I can trade it for something else. Yep. I'm the exact same way, Mr. 19K. Yep. I'll farm that stuff. I'll grind the dungeons. I'll go exploring and looting and everything, and cart everything back. And for the people who want to sit back at the base and go through all the crafting and refining and moving things around and such, I will absolutely bring you everything you need and be, I'm a gopher. I'm a gopher. I'm gonna go find that thing. I'm gonna go get it and I'm gonna bring it back. Um, Blueprints can be granted via reputation rewards. That's the other thing, is it's with Reputation V2. This is something that will come with that. And being able to grind reputation with factions to get specific blueprints is going to be really awesome. But then being able to purchase them. And imagine, like, you'll have your generic ones at certain stores. And maybe you get access to that store via reputation. Maybe it's just there, but also specialty shops that are at specific locations that you find. Go for it. Versus, oh, well, it's a station that everybody, no, this is this backwater out in some swamp, and it's hardly heard of, and it sells this. You can buy it from this store, but before you do it, you have to go do this mission chain for this mission giver. That's the kind of rewards that I'm interested in. Items are great as well, but being able to get those blueprints and then be able to either keep it for myself or find someone who needs it and be able to trade it or give it or sell it to them, whatever. That's really great. Blueprint tiers. Most crafted items will have tiers 1 to 3, while vehicles expand to tier 5. Higher tier items have access to increased stat ranges. Higher tier blueprints have more complex requirements. More ingredients, longer times to make and such. Increasing a blueprint's tier requires the player to complete research tasks. This is what's going to be really interesting to see how they implement the research. So you'll be able to get your tier 1 blueprint, but you'll have to do research in order to upgrade that blueprint to tier 2 or tier 3. But you will also be able to, items can be upgraded from one tier to the next using a specialist upgrade blueprint. That's the other thing that's really interesting to think about, is how will those upgrade blueprints work? Will it just be I get a upgrade blueprint from tier 1 to tier 2 for a primary weapon, and it works for all primary weapons? Or is it going to be a special upgrade blueprint specific to that weapon? How unique, how specific is it going to be? Yeah, that I think Mistral 19K, I think it would be great if you crafted something, if it had your name as a tag on the item. So that way, like if somebody loots it, or if it, because the items, like eventually they degrade and stuff, but as long as it doesn't break, it can have a life story to it. And you'll be like, oh yeah, I found this on this guy, after I killed them, or they dropped it, and they, maybe they were the second or third owner, like that's really cool to think about. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I totally agree. These upgraded items will have access to increased stat ranges. It should be more efficient to craft a higher tier item from scratch than it is to upgrade an item from tier 1 up to its maximum. So that's the other thing. It's like if I loot a tier 2 item, well, I've already got the tier 2 item, but I don't have the blueprint for the item, and I certainly don't have the blueprint for tier 3, but then I can get the upgrade, and then I can upgrade it to tier 3. So I like having multiple paths to the same result. After I tried saving him, you mean? Yeah. Yeah. He was just too far gone, and well, I didn't want to let his gear go to waste. Hee hee. Yeah, you can tell that there's a lot of influence from Star Wars Galaxies, and I hope that they take even more from Galaxies as it grows. I I don't know of too many games that did it better in a way that would fit well within Star Citizen. I didn't play a lot of Star Wars Galaxies, but I did play it because it was a little bit before I wasn't I hadn't gotten into MMOs until Star Wars Galaxies was kind of on the tail end. But I've watched videos and seen people talk about it with a lot more experience than I had, and I'm like, man, it just do what they did, but CIG it a little bit, yeah. Interface. So new dedicated blueprint library app. Oh, please, gimme. Make it a lot easier, so that way you're not having to constantly go back to your or taking a screenshot to look up your, to keep track of your materials. Like new folder style management for materials of the same type, which are different quality. So that'll be interesting, really handy to have within the inventory, because otherwise, with all the different quality levels, it's going to get real confusing. Ability to split and merge resource containers within the inventory where the quality averages out. Yeah, we definitely need the organizational tools, because as people are grinding lots of materials, it's going to fill up real quickly and get hard to manage. even with the new inventory. But the new inventory allows them to add this functionality in that we couldn't have had before. Item functionality, degradation, and repair. This is the next thing that I'm super stoked about. So without items degrading and needing to be replaced, the crafting economy is much less appealing to crafters due to crafting your item once and never need a new one. Items will degrade with usage. Degradation impacts the functionality of the item. Items can be repaired to restore some functionality. Every repair reduces maximum functionality of the item. Low functionality will mean more malfunctions. So, like, this is obvious for guns, for weapons. Malfunction means it jams or something to that effect. Misfires and so on. But what does degradation mean for, say, armor or a suit? Does a malfunction mean that a random bullet has more penetration than it should? What does that look like? The obvious thing is weapons and even tools, but how does that work for things that you wear? Malfunctions for ship components and ship weapons is pretty obvious. A disruption in power if you're for a power plant. Something for your, maybe you fall out of you lose your quantum bubble. There's a chance for your quantum bubble to destabilize and drop you out of quantum, and you have to start back up again. But what does that look like for some of the other things where it's less obvious? Items will get damaged, so there's degradation in functionality, but there's also damage in terms of integrity. So, does your armor only lose integrity, and things with weapons, like weapons, lose functionality, or both? Do you lose functionality and integrity? Is it two different things, compared to other games where you just have an integrity meter, on you have an integrity meter on your axe, and you break open too many crates and it, degrades it, and then you have to repair it. You lose integrity. Like, how does that work? Because they haven't really talked about this. But this is something that I love in games, and especially with item wear and tear, is being able to incentivize you taking care of your stuff and you repairing your stuff. Suit leaks. Ooh, yeah, yeah. Your EVA capable suit goes through your stored air more quickly because it develops leaks as it loses functionality. My suit leaks methane. But with item wear and tear being visible and such, I don't want to lose my gear. I want to get the things that I want, and I want to keep them, but I want them to have visible wear and tear. I want them to have a story. And not only can I repair them, but there will be paths to restore complete functionality. So I will go out of my way to not have my weapon lose full integrity, full functionality, and be able to repair it all the way, just so I can keep my weapon, my armor that has all the scuffs and the scrapes and the scars. And so it looks like it's seen some shit. Versus is like, yeah, it might be more efficient for me to just make a new one, but I like this one. I have this one. I have like lots of stuff that I've accumulated over my military career and even civilian medic career, where I could get a new one or I could just throw it out. But I'm like, no, I use this when I went through this experience. I want to keep this one. I'm going to maintain it. I'm going to take care of it. You guys can't see it, but there's a gun cabinet over there, and it is filled with weapons that are well over 100 years old that have been in my family for 4 generations. And I've restored them all, and I've taken care of them, and they still shoot, and they still function just great, and they all have a story because I've taken care of them, and my family before them have taken care of them. and hopefully my family following me will take care of them. I want that in my game. I want to be able to keep the weapon that I used to fend off those Vandal that ambushed me in the Caliban system when I was, sneaking into their territory to find those really rare materials for my buddy who's an obsessive crafter. Like, that's the good shit, versus just, monkey brain number go up. Yeah, and it also incentivizes you to, make meaningful choices. Like, say you take a 3-round burst to the chest on your armor, and it loses integrity and some functionality, and it's like, okay, well, I'm like halfway done with this dungeon. Do I go all the way back and back out to, then repair it to get it up to this integrity? Because if I don't, I'm likely to take an injury if I get hit again, or do I run the risk because I'm this far along? You know, like those are really meaningful choices. To be able to repair and maintain your gear, do you keep going, or do you come back and do how much risk do you undertake as a player? What choices do you make? Like, this falls into that in a really big way. Pledge gear and crafting. Any item obtained via pledge will be a tier 1 quality item. So I like this because you had, like they talked about with the was it blueprint tiers? Yeah. Even if you have a pledge item and you don't have the blueprint for it, you have a path to upgrade that item. It doesn't have to stay tier 1. Pledge items will never degrade to 0. So you never lose it all the way, but it can essentially become all but useless because you didn't take care of your shit. If the pledge item has a unique livery, the owner receives a cosmetic paint item. The cosmetic paint item allows you to apply that livery to the same item. You do not receive the blueprint to craft the original item itself. This must still be earned in game. Pledge items cannot be traded or dismantled. Aha, interesting. But you can get the paint and you can apply that. So if this one degrades to 0 and you get another one, you can just apply the paint and you still essentially have that pledge item until you can repair the original if you want to. I went 2 tours with the same M4. Oh, man. Crafting vehicles. Functional, dedicated in-vehicle crafting machines. The ability to input-output both materials and items using the vehicle cargo grid. So we talked about this kind of earlier. That's my big question. And the context of this has me a little bit concerned. Because obviously, like, the benefit of having an in-vehicle crafting machine is that it's not taking up SCU space. But will there be other benefits? What are those other benefits to having a ship with your crafting machine built in, your clipper, your Carrack? Because then to put in this sentence afterwards, does that mean that only vehicles with the crafting machine built in will be able to input-output using the vehicle cargo grids? Or is that just anyone, like we were talking about, where if it's on the grid, your crafting machine, you can input output to the grid? Or is it only vehicles with a built-in crafting machine? Because they have talked about how they're going to do that ground vehicle, like the Super Atlas or whatever, that has a crafting machine, a med bed and a crafting machine in it. The Clipper version, but a ground vehicle. So additional fabricator types, food, to craft items like rations, water, etc. I'm looking forward to seeing, I'm probably not going to craft, food or anything like that, but I'm looking forward to seeing how these different machines look in terms of differentiation, like how the food crafting machine looks different from the item crafting machine looks different from the medical crafting machine. Cobra 427 is a game. It's been a long break. Is the game close, even closer to release, or is still a long way from release? If release means 1.0 to you, and everything from here leading up to 1.0, we are still years away from 1.0. But it's making huge strides and lots of really interesting things that come along. And for me, it's been incredibly stable and performant. There are still nagging issues, like we were talking about freight elevators at Vandal Tech Smugglers. Little things like that. Missions still break. NPCs still do stupid shit. But compared to where it was last year, compared to where it was 2 years before, it's monumental change. But we've got a ways to go into 1.0. I think Chris Roberts is smoking crack when he said that 1.0 will be 1 to 2 years after Squadron, because Squadron is supposed to be this year, which means that 1.0 would be 2027, 2028. I'm like, I don't know. I don't think so. But 2020, end of 2028 is a real stretch. I think that's super aggressive, but that's what they said. So, oh yeah, crafting machines will definitely come in different sizes. The question is, where does it change from machine to structure? Like, where does that line lie? Yeah, happy to help, Cobra. Absolutely. I follow the development in great detail, so I'm always happy to help share my thoughts or share information and share links and stuff. Well, so I watched that episode with Space Tomato. He's not reading that correctly, because they said elsewhere in that report, like, there is the option for them to request that money, essentially take the payout. But they have said that he brought it up, but they have said that they could not take the payout if it would jeopardize the financial status of the company. So they can't take that money out until CIG has the extra money. And CIG has like tens of millions of dollars that they're just sitting on from that initial investment, those initial investments, and then the second, the additional that came along. That is when they took that investment, it said it was earmarked for platform and marketing. So that money will get spent, or at least partly, on the platform, or is currently getting spent on some of the platform costs associated with static server meshing, but it'll also get spent on the marketing campaign for Squadron 42. Hey, Olowax07, good to see you. Thanks for coming and hanging out. But the investors are not, they can't take, they've been deferring their dividends. They haven't taken a dividend payment since like 2020, I think, is when they only did dividends for like the first couple years after the initial investment, because they mentioned it in one of the financial reports early on. But the investors have been deferring their dividends in lieu of CIG being able to keep that money, so that way they can use it for development. But those dividends, how much those dividends pay out, goes up with each year that CIG makes more money. So it would, if they had paid out the dividend in 2021 based off of how much CIG made in 2021, that same dividend will be, when they pay it out, say 2028, 2029, that same dividend will be worth more. So it behooves the investors to defer their dividends, which is why they haven't pulled them out, which is why they won't take their dividends until it's in their best interest. Yeah, no, it won't go past, like, if it goes past 2026, I'll be wildly surprised. Yes, Mr. 19K, and I'm sure Danger Hobo, you guys know what I'm talking about. knife hand, it would behoove you, or like the knife hand is all well and good. I like the snap point right in the face, snap point right in your face. It would behoove you, you know, CIG does have some investments, but they can't invest the money from the investors. It's earmarked. It's in every financial report every year. But they earmarked it for platform costs and for marketing, so that way the cost of hosting Star Citizen so we can play it wouldn't take too much money away from the development. Because right now, the way they're running static server meshing is costing them more money than it used to host the game. So that's some of that money is probably getting used in order to pay for their server shard costs. But they also didn't want the marketing campaign to take money away from and say, okay, well, we can't hire these devs because we have to pay for marketing. We can't hire these devs because we have to pay for servers. And that's why they've been sitting on that money for years. They do have some investments, but that money was not turned around and invested. They've been sitting on it. You can go back and look at the financial reports. It shows their money on hand every year. Yeah. Let's keep going with the guide so we can finish this up because it's 11 o'clock my time and I gotta wake up and take care of the kids in the morning. Food to craft items like rations, water, etc. Medical, med pens, medicine, drugs. Medicine and drugs are separate things. We're gonna get high. I want to be able to use illicit substances in lieu of medicine. Be like, hey, I just got downed. I need to get back up. I could use my adrenopen, or I could take this space meth, and it'll make me run faster for 10 minutes. Or this, space ADHD med that will give me more focus and make me aim down sights faster, for 10 minutes or something like that. But then you have a negative status effect afterwards. Or you use it too often and you get withdrawals and then you have the negative status effect. Give players more choice how they want to run things. Construction, large hangar-sized space used in base building for crafting spaceships and other vehicles. My question is components are big. Is it going to be a crafting machine that you put on a cargo grid that lets you craft size 2 components? Up to, because size 3, and then okay, maybe it's a machine, maybe it's a building that crafts a size 3 component. Then you have to put it down the freight elevator and then use the vehicle management app to then attach it to your large capital size ship. How's that work? Salvage. Yes. Construction materials split into the refined materials that vehicles are made out of. Select materials are exclusive to this method, e.g., salvaging alien ships to get alien materials. This is going to be really interesting to see this come in for salvage. And ultimately, vehicle and base construction, building construction. New refining system. And they've only talked about this a little bit, but I'm very interested to see what refining gameplay actually looks like, because we don't really have refining gameplay. It's I have this ore, I refine it. You take out, it takes this long, and then you can sell it for this much. It's very simple. Yeah, we can't switch out size 3. You have to go to a station for that, and so will you be able to do that at your base? Will you have to use a crafting machine, and then make the component and then put it in the inventory and then attach it to your ship via the VMA? What's that going to look like? New refining, or if you don't have a hangar for your ship, but you've got the building to or machine to craft size 3 components, Okay, then you have to take that component, put it on a cargo grid, fly it up to a station, land at the station, and then attach it to, put it in the freight elevator to put it in the inventory and then attach it to that ship. How's that going to work? New refining system. So new system creates alloys and composite materials, no longer converting iron ore into iron, but iron ore primary into carbon secondary. The primary input determines the quality of the refined product. Quality of the secondary determines how much of it is needed. Allow use of things like creature harvestables to create new materials in a grounded and believable manner. Add unlockable blueprints required for select exotic materials. That's going to be the interesting thing, is how, like, if you want to refine, it essentially refine to craft a exotic material to then craft something else. Hey, hi Prince of Dragon 07. Thanks for stopping by. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a good stream, buddy. We're just finishing up. But in order to craft this exotic material that you then need to use to craft something else, you have to get the blueprint in order to refine that thing, and then get the materials for it. So crafting within crafting within crafting. So that's a really interesting system. Lots of really great info to come out of this refining guide. So I hope you will take the time to check it out yourself and read through it. If you think if my thoughts on some of the things were off base, or if you read something you're like, well, what if it's this? I would love to hear your thoughts about it. So if you're watching this later on YouTube, leave a comment in the comments. If you're watching live now, hop in the Discord and let me know what you think. But I think this is a pretty great guide. And after the medical guide that dropped with the Apollo, that I thought was a disappointment, I think this is a really awesome guide. And even though crafting isn't my gameplay loop, I'm excited for it for other people. And I'm excited for how I can integrate into other people's crafting experience with what I like to do. Last but not least, before we call it a night, I know a lot of people are aware of this resource, the SC Mission Database. It's scmdb.net. But now you can, and there's another one. Was it? No. Huh. Why is I not? There's another one, but I forgot the link. But you can go to scmdb.net, and you can find everything you need in order to find the blueprints that you're looking for, to find what materials you need for those blueprints, what missions you have to do, what blueprints come with that mission, because obviously there's a list of blueprints that come for the mission. It isn't just one blueprint. So it's it's a bit of RNG, which I don't like. I want you to be able to do a mission and then choose the blueprint that you want for your reward. That's a pretty standard feature, but I think that's not hey, we designed it this way because we want you to repeat the missions. It's hey, the mission system doesn't have this functionality for you to choose your reward yet, and we need to get that in. But so you can go to Fabricator, and then you can say, I want to craft a heavy torso. And I was, looking at the ADP Mark IV Core Woodland, because it's one of the ones that I like. Yes, scrafter.com. Thank you for dropping that in chat, Juan Blissimo. Yeah, that's another good one as well. I'm assuming they're running off the same information or a similar API. I don't know if anyone has the answer to that. Yeah, I want, I don't want to have to do the same mission however many times to get the blueprint that I want. I don't think that's fair, especially if it's RNG and like who knows how many times it could take for me to get this ADP dash Mark IV Core Woodland, because it's in the loot pool for all of these missions. But then if you look at the mission, all of these blueprints are part of that pool. I'm not a fan of the FS9. I don't care for the BR2 shotgun. I don't run around with a Gallant. I don't want these ones. I want the Mark IVs. I'm not interested in the magazines. Yeah, RNG is bad. I hate RNG as a reward for a mission. And I'm pretty positive that this is a limitation of the current mission system, and that we will get the ability to choose our reward. But in the meantime, yeah, it kind of sucks because we only have so many missions, and this is a big loot pool. This is a big loot pool. And so the distribution makes it really hard to get the things that you want in a timely manner. Yeah, or in that sort of system would be fine too. If you get credits to spend on blueprints, I'm sure that will be an option eventually. But I don't like RNG for Wicklow, and I want to say, hey, if I'm going to spend all this time doing these missions and stuff, I want to, if I want the arms, the legs, the core, and the helmet, I want to do the mission 4 times, not 14, or God knows how many to get the whole fucking set. Because you still have to spend all the time to then go get the materials for the things, and the let's go back. You then have to get the uretite and the aslerite to make the things. So, like, in order to get a full set of 80p Mark IV core woodland just with base materials, it is potentially really, really time consuming, and a lot of grind and repetition. Yeah, blame CIG. Yes, I blame CIG. It's not Wicklow's fault. We hate on Wicklow. Wicklow is the face of the RNG stuff that we don't like, that or the elevator bugs that we don't like. And I feel bad for Wicklow. But I can't wait for them to get rid of the RNG for the missions, so that way I can pick the reward that I want. The other game that I'm playing right now is Menace, the squad-based strategy tactics game. And at the end of every operation, most of the operations have multiple rewards, and I get to pick the one that I want. And I know that it's going to be of this category and everything. Yeah. I'm not angry at you. I'm just disappointed. Ooh, yeah. Nope. Jaded Cynic, I'm going to start doing that in game now. Depending on who the hanger manufacturer is, if it's a oh gosh, I'm brain farting on the hanger manufacturers. I'm going to blame them. They are the object of my ire. Yeah. Yep. But it is a great resource, so you can at least say, okay, if I'm going to grind, I can find the things that I want to grind for, and I can pick the missions that I want to grind for. And all of these missions have the same loot pool. So maybe I don't want to do this one, but oh, this one sounds neat. Like, I want to do the no, it's not this one. It's is it this one? I think this is the one where you go to I thought it said somewhere. Because like I want to do the missions where Selfland and Arrowview are the ones that we have in, right? Because we don't have what's Wasn't there the really fancy one that we had from the hangar module? What was the really fancy manufacturer for hangars? The Vaughn missions for kill shot and pulverizer do not even give you a crime stat. But like, I want to go back to Pyro and do the missions where I get to go to the asteroid facilities. I love those missions. I love exploring those facilities, and there's good loot in there as well. But if I can do those and, um, you know, get these blueprints, then all the better. Was it Revel in York? Yeah, that's the fancy one. Yeah. Yeah, blame Revel in New York. It looks pretty, but goddamn it, it doesn't function. Their freight elevators are garbage. I don't remember. I think it was this one, the Halt Narcotics Operation. I was looking at it before, and it said, but it's a 100% chance to get one of these 14 things. Like, and then if I do the mission, I get the Gallant Blueprint and do it again. Do I get the Gallant Blueprint again, or does it move on down the list? Like, does it know that I already have the Gallant Blueprint? Like, I don't know. But anyway, it is like, I've used the tool before they had this, but they've expanded it to have all the crafting stuff. And it's a really great resource. So hats off to the people behind this, behind the SC mission database. Let's go ahead and switch screens and wrap it up. All right. Is there a little bit, maybe a touch of delay? I don't know. I can't tell. But I just want to say thank you to all you guys for coming and hanging out this evening. A lot of you guys are still hanging out after dropping in from Star Jump Grim's stream. Big shout out to Star Jump Grim and Prince of Dragon for the raids. Really appreciate the support. It means a lot to me. I am intending to stream again tomorrow night, but to play the game and start grinding those missions so I can get that ADP Mark IV armor. And I really want to get a P8 because I love the P8. But before we call it a night, I hope you guys will join me in the Discord and come hang out. If you'd like to grind blueprints with me tomorrow night, I would be happy to grind with you. We don't even have to go for the ADP. I want to go grind some blueprints with people. So, Mom's 308 is playing SC instead of AAK stream. Okay, cool. We can raid them. Let's see. Give me 1 second. But I always like to pay it forward, especially because Star Jump Grim rated me, so we got to show him some love. But if you'd like to grind with me tomorrow night or any night this week, hit me up in my Discord. I'd be happy to party up with you. I'm usually when I play at about the same time, starting at 8 p.m. Mountain, 10 p.m. Eastern. So and I'm not picky. I just want to find some blueprints and start testing this shit out. So if you've got something that you want to earn, I'll go with you, and we'll make it happen. But yeah, let's Mom's 308. Okay, we will send them a raid, show them some love. And I got to call it night because I got to wake up early. And I will get this rendered, and it won't be up on my YouTube tomorrow, but it'll be up on YouTube, up on my YouTube on Tuesday. So if you missed part of it and you wanted to check out the VOD, it'll be up then. So let's go ahead and start that raid. All right. Thanks again, everybody. Cheers, 07s. Hope you had a good night. Hope you enjoyed the discussion. Love the interaction with you guys. Goodbye.